Welcome to our third edition of Grinder Stories from Elk Camp, where we talk with everyday elk hunters just like you from all over the U.S. about their elk hunts. All of the learning moments, the ups, the downs, the steps, the realizations, with a bunch of hows and whys, helping you to learn from both their successes and their mistakes. On this edition, we welcome Mr. Craig Klein from Farmer, Minnesota. Population 64. Craig has an incredible story that began 3 years prior in the mountains of Montana, where he still describes the experience as a real punch in the mouth. Well, brother, don't worry. We've all been there. 3 years later, and now 2 seasons of learning under their belt, Craig and his buddy are in Colorado, OTC, and this time with a string of llamas in tow and ready for an adventure. Will the third time be the charm? Well, y'all, let's just find out. That discussion, some ElkBros shout outs, and questions from our awesome ElkBros mailbox. So my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Gilly. You want to hunt elk? They live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. Hope you enjoy the show. And as always, for our blue collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm Gilbert Ornelas, the host of your show, coming to you from Spring, Texas. And that's right, we're waiting on Manano and Luis, the Venezuelan mafia, to show up. But we have the legend himself, the real cowboy, Mr. R.C. Knox is in the house from Cuesta, New Mexico, and from Cimarron, New Mexico. We've got our elk hunting coaches in the house. That's right. We've got the ninja, Leroy Chavez, and WWJGD. What would Joe Gillia do? He is in the house, teed up and ready to go. But joining us from at Elk Camp today, let's give a warm ElkBros welcome tonight to our first guest, all the way from Farming, Minnesota, Mr. Craig Klein.
Hey guys.
Hey. Mr. Klein. How you doing tonight, brother?
We're doing great. Yeah, glad to be here.
Welcome, brother.
Welcome, man. Just glad to have you, bud. And I love it when these guys show up, man. And it's like Luis, when we started first recording, and Luis ain't going to make it. Luis just sent me a text going, I just got in from work and I got to put the girls to bed. And oh man, try me a river, right?
Man.
But he came in, he had the camera turned so you could see all the animals up on the wall back there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But look at this guy. This guy's got it going on. Craig's got, you can see 1, 2, 3. This is a archery man's den right here, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, I love it. I got my paper tuner, my bow press, my draw board. I've got pretty much everything, arrow saw, everything I need down here.
That's awesome, dude.
That's pretty cool.
I think before we actually started recording, you were saying though that you have, history as far as working in pro shops, right?
Yeah, I started working in a pro shop when I was, I think, 14 or 15 years old. And it was actually a sporting goods store, and I worked in the archery department, I should say, and kind of managed the archery department. And then my first year of college, I actually managed I think it is the biggest archery store in Minnesota, and I managed that for, I think, 3 or 4 years.
Where's that at, Craig?
It's Archery Country in St. Cloud, Minnesota, and
Okay.
now they have 3 locations now. So, and then they're involved with Archery 365, and they've grown immensely. Actually, I just talked with the owner the other day, stopped in there and talked to him again.
So you said the name of it was Archery Country?
Archery Country, yep.
So
Awesome.
Would you say that they are really grinder approved?
I would definitely say that. Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
They do a good job. It's hard for when a company grows, it's really hard to provide that pro shop type service. And I think they've done about as good of a job, as large as they are, as good of a job as you can do. Because
brother. Yep.
it gets hard when you get big, you know, and, and they've gotten pretty big. So
yeah.
So
I think what I've heard from a lot of people when they go into archery shops, they just feel so intimidated that it's not a good experience for them. They feel like people kind of talk down to them, or, you know, make them feel like, you know, lesser than because they don't have all the knowledge. And we're real fortunate in Albuquerque. We have a archery shop there, Hit or Miss, and they're just fantastic, man. They bring tons of people in and they educate them, they get them set up, and, you know, those guys are really great. So a shout out to them. And, you know, I think I had mentioned to you that I have a buddy up, Don Primley up there, north of St. Cloud. And I think you said you might have even worked on his bow, huh?
The name sounds so familiar. Yeah. The first time I heard you mention his name on a podcast is like, gal, I think I might have met him before. So yeah, that was kind of funny.
Well, you'd remember him. I mean, this guy's ugly. You'd definitely remember him. His wife, I mean, his wife keeps him in the game because she's just as sweet as possible, man. So that's awesome, man. So farming, Minnesota, population 64, born, raised there?
Yeah, I was born and raised in a little town 6 miles southeast of here. In Richmond, Minnesota, which is just another small town, but grew up on a little farm out there. And I'm, you know, if you want my whole life story, after I don't know how much you want to get into that.
I want to hear a little bit about you, man. Yeah.
Well, like I said, grew up on a little farm, went to college. I always had a job since I was 13 years old. I've had a job. I worked construction for a while, but shortly out of college, I started a masonry company, and I did that for 7 years. And I took on a business partner, ended up selling that company and buying a dog training business. And that's what I currently do. So I primarily train hunting dogs.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I got a little boarding business, and then I also have a hunting preserve. So yeah, it's
what shock was it for you when you started heading towards elk country? What was the biggest shock for you?
You know, I had never been west. Oh, I take that back. Yes, I had been. But it was all dog related. Everything was, I travel running field trials and stuff like that. So I thought that was my travels to the western states the first time. But when I was actually going out hunting, I mean, just like everybody says, you get out there and everything's way bigger than you expect, way bigger, you know, and that was a shock. And I tried to have myself prepared for that, because when I knew I was going elk hunting, I jumped in and I tried to research things as much as I could. And I heard that it's going to be overwhelming when you get there. And so I was kind of ready for that, but it's still, you're just not ready for it the first time. And even now, sometimes when you pull into a spot, you're like, oh boy, that was not quite what I thought it was going to be, you know? And so that's just something people got to be ready for, you know, and just know it's going to look a little overwhelming, and be ready for it. And just know that, hey, you'll walk and walk, you'll get there.
Yeah, that's, you know, we've had the pleasure of actually going to Minnesota. So, looky here. Look who just dropped in. Dude, man, we were
couldn't take it.
Mr. Klein, just please know that the only reason I'm joining is to meet you. Okay. I don't have any interest in hanging out with these guys who don't recognize me as the true leader of the Venezuelan mafia.
Now wait a second, Luis. I guess you have not listened to Gilbert on the Western Contour.
He has not heard my Western Contest.
I haven't yet, but I did tell Manano. I said, Manano, I've downloaded the podcast and I need to listen to it because I really want to hear Beto Unleashed.
Well, okay then.
Look, I was pretty subdued, man, but Guy makes it very apparent that I could do whatever I wanted and go wherever I wanted, right?
Hey,
So,
we're just so handcuffed around here, man. It's not right.
look, and I tried to, we got a brand and it's a family brand, so I tried to leave it at that, man.
What I want you to know, man, is he does say something about the leader, and you come out here dogging him, and I'm like, really, man? You better wait till you listen, because yeah.
Look, man, I love my Venezuelan brothers like crops love rain, son. So I love to give him a hard time too. And I've been poking him since Joe said he wasn't coming in. So I promise you.
Yeah. We were poking. Hey, we're glad you're here, man. And we want you to meet Greg Klein out of Farming, Minnesota.
Yes, sir.
He's from a metropolis of 64 people.
Yeah. He's from a smaller town than you and Manano are from, brother.
One traffic light?
Yeah, one traffic light.
No. We got a bar and a church. That's it.
Wow. Is it a Baptist church?
Which came first?
No, it's a Catholic church.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
Well, I guarantee you the bar did. And after they had so many drunks, they said, we better get us a church here to
That's
help
right.
all these healing people.
Yeah. And the funny thing is after Friday night mass, half the people end up at the bar. So it's
We Catholics like to throw down, man. We love all our Catholic friends.
We are so excited to have you, Craig. And for people listening, man, Craig came on with us before we actually started recording. Luis has just come on to the show just now. RC keeps appearing and disappearing, and that's because he's still in witness protection. So there's only so much of his face that we can show.
I think he's got some horses gnawing on his feet, man.
I might have to move.
What we want to do so that we can actually get moving the show along is, we always have the mailbox. We do our ElkBros mailbox towards the end of our show. And since we have our guests on like this, man, we get into these stories and we just haven't, we've been 2 hours every time. So we don't get to those mailboxes. And I wanted to make sure that we hit one of these mailboxes right away, because Craig, I want you to be involved with this, because, especially somebody that basically you have 3 years of elk hunting under your belt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
How much hunting, Mr. Klein, how much hunting have you done throughout your life, like woodsmanship?
He's a whitetail hunter, I bet, if he's up in Minnesota, man.
My mom said I came out of the womb hunting.
Yeah. You like me, brother. Yeah.
Yep. And it really, my dad hunted a little
out when
bit,
I came out. Yeah.
I was hunting chipmunks and you name it.
Yeah.
I was trying to catch it or kill it when I was a kid.
Yeah. That's awesome, brother.
Yeah. So, you got that background, but you only have that, it's real early in your elk hunting career, which is really something that's going to help you to relate to this. So,
you bet.
I'm going to go ahead and hit this ElkBros mailbox question. And then if we have time for the other one at the end, we'll hit that one. But This is from Timothy Jackson from Michigan. And he said that he's hoping to get some advice. He says he's hunted elk twice now and pretty much just hiked with his bow for 7 days the first time. And he got so frustrated the second time he went out that he gave up on day 5. He says he doesn't know how to call. And he says when he did see elk, the few times that he saw them, it was just their rear end running away. So his question is this: should I give up on hunting elk on my own, or do I need to hire a guide? What would you do in my case? And, I'm going to put our guest on the spot right now, man. And I want to hear what you would tell him, Craig, because you've got 3 years under your belt.
Me personally, I would say learn to call. There's so many resources out there now that I think just about anybody should be able to get to the point where they can do some basic elk calls. I've had experience turkey calling, and I used to blow in waterfall contests, but even my buddies, it doesn't take that long, and it does take some work and take some practice, but I don't think it's beyond what the average person can do. I mean, so I would say learn to call, but I wouldn't say don't go with a guide either. I think your first time, you can learn a lot from a guide also. So I guess there's different ways of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, it's really, it can be challenging at the beginning, but it's really not that hard. Even Manano's learning. I mean, so imagine how.
You're talking about calling, not hunting elk, right?
Yeah, calling. Yeah. Just calling.
Look, I'm gonna be real honest with you, and Mr. Jackson, if you have the fiduciary means,
Have the what?
Wow, here we go. Here we go.
That's the
Here
what?
we go.
Is this the word of the day?
He got up this morning again and Googled it up. And oh my God, man. It's just, why'd you do this, Beto, man? It's just like, I need, there's got to be an app. It's an app that he's got. And it's like, it tells him the word of the day. And then it tells him the meaning too. So he can then sounds like, what is that? You tell him, what is that? And he goes, well, and he gives you the exact description that the app gives him. It's like, so tell us, what is fiduciary?
That's money, responsibility, money, right? So if you have the money, if you have the means within,
see how much easier that was, bro.
Yeah, if you have the money or the fiduciary means to pay for a guide, and we don't know where he's hunting either, Joe. I'd really like to know where he's hunting. Is he hunting in New Mexico? Drawing out? Is he hunting in public land, OTC in Colorado? Wherever Mr. Jackson's hunting, we'd like to know so we could give a better.
You just don't know what you get.
Yeah. But there's something that, Guy and I touched on it on his podcast a couple of days ago, and he asked why I went that route, why I didn't just dive in by myself and go elk hunting. And now, number one, I didn't have the time to prepare, okay, or the knowledge of where to go look to prepare. Okay. Yeah. Now that I'm in the elk
but
hunting,
then also way back then, the resources probably weren't there.
Yeah, we didn't have internet. We didn't have cell phones.
Yeah. It has really changed, man. I mean, just look at the last 5 years.
Few years. Yes. I said it jokingly, but in a way, I mean it too, because
true words may never been spoken. Yeah, for sure. So there's so much more content out there. I mean, look, I'm not just pimping our brand, but brother, if you hadn't been to our base camp, you're missing out, right? I mean, it is chock full of some of the very best hundreds of years of knowledge, of elk hunting knowledge that's out there, that we're giving that content to you for a very small price, right? And there's just so many other avenues out there, lots of podcasts, Western Contours, Paul Medell, us. I mean, there's just so much more out there. But for me, the guided thing was better because I didn't have the time to invest in all of, or really the social capital to invest either of gaining all the knowledge that you need to be in the elk woods. Because listen,
the fiduciary was there.
Yeah, the fiduciary part, we had it covered. But Mr. Klein will tell you that he's been hunting, jackrabbits since he popped out of the womb. But this is a different type of hunting, right? And it takes a different type of skill set to be able to be successful. There's a reason why there's a 10%, right, that heads out west.
And when they talk about 10%, it's kind of like, what Guy mentioned earlier today too. You start knocking that down. I mean, you take really, there's a group of those people that are killing 90% of the elk every year, right, that are the same people year after year. So those percentages drop down a whole lot more than that,
Look at your percentage. I mean, you add to that percentage number huge, right?
Yeah.
I'm starting on a mini streak myself. So,
you've already killed more elk than most people will kill in a lifetime, man.
Yeah.
So
and I've been part of, and I've been part of other hunts too. I brought 12 to 15 clients every year to Mr. Gamage, and so I would be on those hunts. So not only was I learning so much while I was on those hunts with some of the very best guides in the world. One of them is right down there in our screen. His name is RC Knox. I mean, these guys were the very best at, number one, knowing the country. Number 2, knowing the quarry. Number 3, being able to call. These guys were the very best that
But
I
if you
got
could
to
go
to
back
hunt
again, bro, with what you know right now, would you
Yeah,
have
what's
done
different?
everything the same way?
with what I know now.
Well, yeah. Well, no, not with not. I mean,
No,
as
I'd have never
far as
changed. I wouldn't have changed a thing, Joe.
with
I'd
the
have st-
resources that we have today. Let's put it that way. With the resources that are out there today. Now, you were in a situation, like you said, it was going to be your 40th birthday. You were a little old baby, right? And it's going to be your 40th birthday. And so you were like, I want to go elk hunting. Your birthday was going to happen right there. I mean, it happens right in the elk hunt, right?
we were on the hunt.
Yeah. So it's not like you had a whole lot of time to get ready for this, right? But now let's take a look at Tim here, man.
Right.
Tim has been out twice, and when we take a look at Craig, we're not going to talk about this hunt yet because that story's yet to come. But you've been out 2 years prior to that where you were not successful, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And so you had a lot of lessons learned, a lot of things there. You probably at some point in time, and that did a lot of hiking with your bow at sometimes, on certain days.
Absolutely.
Shoot, there's some days we do a lot of hiking with our bows.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. That's part of elk hunting, man.
Yeah.
I mean, so was there a time, Craig, that you were like, maybe I need to get a guide?
I'll be honest, it never crossed my mind. I'm stubborn as hell. And when I make up my mind I'm going to do something, it's either I'm probably going to die trying or it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, bravo, man. You knew exactly what you wanted.
Yeah, and I take a lot of pride in doing something myself. I have nothing against guides. I have been on guided hunts. And I have nothing against them, but I take a certain amount of pride in just doing stuff myself,
Yeah.
When they cut your learning curve down too, man. I mean, at the end of the day, they're experienced callers. They know the land much better than you do.
If they are that type of guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
so you got to do your homework. But if you don't do your homework and do what Craig did, and obviously what Mr. Jackson's done, if you don't do your homework, you're going to be unsuccessful there too.
Yeah,
so
and
it really takes you doing your homework.
I think what Joe is saying too about the type of guide is the guide that is willing to teach you instead of just simply tell you.
Well, I mean, look, there's a difference in that, but if you can't learn while you on a guided trip, you're not paying attention.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying with that as well.
I agree.
There's always something, but there's a lot of nuances that you can get out of something that most people, you're going to see what that guide does in there, but you're not seeing all that information that went around him that led to those decisions that he's making. And some of those teaching guides will, point that stuff out to you and give you those nuances and things that
I think we've run into a deal also where we had a person make a comment that he felt, well, when's this guy going to do this and when's this guy going to do that, and when and he was like, I don't understand this, what's happening. Well, what had happened is the hunter had gone through our academy and learned a bunch of stuff that the guide didn't know. So I mean, so that's a deal there too. So
sure, and Guy and I talked about it as well, that just because you go on a guided hunt doesn't necessarily mean that guide's got more experience than you. You don't know what his background is. So those are things that you want to do when you're discussing with outfitters, that what their guide experience level is. And look, I've said this 1,000 times, no matter what you pay, the money's relevant. Okay. I mean, if you're going to pay a guy $300 a day or $400 a day to come do a job, you're not paying him $300, $400 a day for that day. You're just not. Okay. Because when I give softball lessons, they're $50 for 30 minutes. They're not paying me for that they're not paying me $50 for that 30 minutes. They're paying me $50 for the 30 years that I put in to learn how to teach their daughter in 30 minutes what they couldn't their whole life. And that's the same thing with those guides. You're not paying them $300 a day for their day. You're paying them for the 15 or 20 years that they've put in to understand the quarry, the area, all of those other things to make your hunt a lot more enjoyable. And I'm not saying all of them are like that, but I'm saying if you do your homework and find a really good place to hunt, it's reputable, got really good guys, you should have as a hunter, what you're looking for when you go elk hunting are opportunities, right? The opportunity to harvest an elk, right? And if he does that, or you do that when you're in the woods, that's a hunt, man.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a successful hunt.
Look, I want to answer your question, Tim, directly at some of the things that I'm seeing here. And what I'm seeing is you went on 2 hunts totally unprepared. And that is frustrating, you know, for you to go someplace and I don't care what state you go to. I don't care if it's Utah, Washington, Idaho, New Mexico. You get out there and in that country, it's a big country.
Huge.
And if you do not have a clue, you know, you walk into a house and all the hallways, it looks like a star, and all the hallways are all going around, and you have no idea where the kitchen, which direction the kitchen is.
Spend all day.
You go hungry, man.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're going to be doing a lot of searching through that maze trying to figure out what to do. And so what I would tell you is this. My answer to your question is, if you are not wanting to put that kind of time into learning how to call, if you're not wanting to learn how to learn about the nuances and the behaviors of the animal and better yourself in that position of it, if you just want to be a great archer and make great shots and have somebody put you in an opportunity, then the guide is your thing. If you're willing and you want to do that where you are learning that so that you can use that skill set year after year after year and build on that, then I tell you, man, go and learn, get after it and learn. It depends on you, your personality, and what kind of work you want to put into this for your end goal. You know, like Gilbert said, if you just have in mind that you want to kill an elk, that's your end goal, and you want that opportunity without putting all that time and effort and work and gear and all that stuff into it, then I'd start saving my money. Because that's what you're wanting to do.
There's a lot of good outfitters out there, but if you want to learn how to do it yourself, it takes you being prepared. Number one, get to our base camp, man, get in it and start learning how to make elk sounds, right? Start learning how to call elk, start learning the quarry that you're hunting. And then, man, above all else, he said, you know, the times he did see elk, he saw them running away. I guarantee you most of that's probably because he's not playing the wind right? I mean, or he's, you know, just busting in there, not thinking elk are going to be around, whatever it may be. But man, the biggest things in the world, knowing where they're going to be as far as, you know, where their feed is and where their transitional areas are.
Understanding elk behavior, man.
Elk behavior, that's right. And then being able to make an elk sound, you know, and learning how to get a wind snuffer bottle out and don't go the same direction as the chalk's moving.
And really, you can learn some basics and get an elk, man.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah.
So.
I hope that helped Mr. Jackson.
I hope it helps him. I hope it helps a lot of people, because bottom line is, you know, when as coaches, people come to us and they think we're going to make them state champions. And we used to tell them there is no magic wand, it's work. And either you're going to put the work in or you're going to pay somebody else to put the work in.
The message is, you can do it.
Yeah. And Mr. Jackson, if we've answered your question, great. If not, if you still want to clarify anything, please touch us at info@elkbros.com and we'll get right back to you, brother.
I was just going to say that getting a guide doesn't guarantee anything, because for every good guide, there's a bad guide. So you got to do your research, get references. You know, it's not that easy.
It does guarantee one thing, and it's that you're going to be paying somebody else your money.
Exactly.
Yeah. Guys, you know what time it is. It's time for our ElkBros shout outs. If you're new to our show, this is just a shout out to a few cities with the most listeners topping our charts this week, Joe.
And guys, first, we're going to thank these folks, or any of the folks that have been giving us such incredible reviews on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. And this is the first review that we've had since like October 16th. And here's what's so cool about this. look, big shout out to Brian from Littleton, Colorado, because Brian said that he has learned more from our show and our base camp course than his previous 7 years in the field.
Sweet.
And, you know, Brian, I sure hope you're listening, because you left this review on November 29th. And which was kind of a special day for me. I was sitting at a poker table playing poker, because I do that every year on my birthday. You actually gave us this review on my birthday, and I got so many generous gifts and well wishes from so many awesome people that I'm going to give something back in return, man. So Brian, I know you already have the base camp there, but I want you to get back with me, and we're going to gift somebody, one of your partners, one of your own kids, a friend, neighbor, anybody you want to. We're going to make sure that they have a 1-year subscription to our base camp, buds. So happy birthday to them. All right.
That is way cool.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe,
Yeah.
I got to tell you, my birthday was yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
That's awesome.
Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
bud.
Mr. Klein.
Thanks.
On the
Happy
30th,
birthday.
huh?
Yeah. Yep.
That's awesome, man. Oh, we're right there, man. You're a Sag too. No wonder you like to shoot that bow.
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome, man. All right, Chav, let's get it started.
Okay, this top listening city is located in a fertile Midwestern prairie farm belt, but is close to the timberline to the south. The town is the site of the fourth presidential Lincoln-Douglas debate in 1858, and both men spent the night here. This was General Ulysses S. Grant's first post during the Civil War while commanding the 21st Illinois Infantry. In 1917, they experienced a terrible disaster. An F5 tornado killed 101 people and injured another 638, making it Illinois' third worst tornado disaster in its history. And this is in Maton, Illinois.
Matt in Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a double O on that one.
Oh, is it?
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah,
gonna say.
it's Mattoon, Illinois, actually.
Mattoon, Illinois.
Kind of crazy, but in Spanish, maton, which M-A-T-O-N
Oh, yeah.
means killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Killer.
Man, you hear all that history, and then, for people to have suffered through something like that, man, is, that's a tough deal. So that was in 1917. Just it's been over 100 years that hopefully they will never have another thing like that again.
This city, Joe, is located on the west side of the Sierra Nevada mountain range in California's gold country. An estimated 125 million ounces of gold were extracted from the nearby mountains. French gold miners settled here in 1848 and established a mining camp that evolved into a town. A group of miners from New York named the town after their own hometown in New York. It's a home to most challenging and historic endurance sports event in the world, the prestigious 100-mile Western States Trial Running Race in none other than Auburn, California.
Auburn, California.
Just northeast of Sacktown.
Trail running race, man. Chav, do you know about that?
I've heard of it, but that's about it.
There's a lot of that. I've heard that there's more. That's that ultra marathon type.
Ultra marathon runners, yeah.
Yeah.
They're crazy.
Yeah,
That's a lot of miles.
100 miles running. I hear about guys biking 100 miles, but holy Toledo, man, running 100 miles is.
I will say that running on a trail, a mountain trail, is easier than running on a road.
Right.
The miles just click by real quick. On the road, it's killer. But I can see the trail running as being easier, if there's such a thing.
You introduce a grizzly bear, I bet it goes by a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Or ends quick.
Hey, I just want to understand, RC, you're making sure you're showing us all the different parts of your house Like, you're just showcasing. Are you planning on selling your home, or what's the
Yeah,
deal?
how do you like this? Yeah,
Okay.
let me see if I can find another room here.
Just doing some sort of virtual reality type of like propaganda to sell the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ranch house of Cuesta.
Oh, real estate version. Here we go. Luis, you're up, man.
This unincorporated village in northern Arizona is located in Verde Valley and is surrounded by national forests and state land. Top tourist attractions include the National Monument of Montezuma's Castle and Montezuma's Well, as well as the Wet Beaver Creek area in the famous Bell Trail. Over 1 million gallons of water flow into the well on a daily basis. The village has very few amenities and is a place where peaceful rural living is the biggest draw. Rimrock, Arizona.
Rimrock, Arizona, in the house. Thank you
right.
guys, man, for being our listeners out there. And I let me tell you what, over 1 million gallons of water flowing to the well on
That's
a day?
It's on a daily basis. That's crazy.
Yeah, it just kind of shows you, man, when we talk about God and God's plan, man, you have a place like Arizona, but here we have this area that gets 1 million gallons of water flowing into it. That's it's amazing how that provides just like that.
Definitely.
I imagine that was a place well visited back in the day.
I would think so. I would think so. Joe, next up, this city is known as the gateway to the Delta and was named by the French explorer Robert La Salle in 1682. During the Civil War, the Confederates built the ironclad CSS Arkansas here. The ironclad patrolled the Mississippi and challenged the Union Navy for control of the Mississippi Delta and delayed the eventual fall of nearby Vicksburg. Famous country comedian, Jerry Clower, spent over 30 years here as a resident. Many of his most memorable skits mention this town of Yazoo, Mississippi.
Yazoo.
Yazoo, Mississippi.
Oh, dude, I was so pumped because as a kid, man, Jerry Clower was on those tapes that we used to listen to as a kid, man. And I mean, we knew the whole Ledbetter family: Ardell, Burnell, Raynell, WL, Linell, Odell, Marcel, Eugene, Claude, and Clovis.
Exactly. All the Ledbetters was in town. You hear me?
And cousin Eugene, right?
Cousin Eugene, that's right.
I'm way too young to understand.
Brother, you got to find some of that Jerry Clower humor now. Set you free, son.
Loved Jerry Clower, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, the stories that he told, what was so funny is when you are from the backwoods.
Yes.
And you listen to Jerry Clower, and everybody's, ha, ha. You're like, well, what's so funny about a rat killing? You know? Well, that's how you hunt coon. Why is everybody
exactly?
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I wonder where RC is going to pop up next.
He's going to pop up mounted on a horse in his kitchen.
I think he's still listening, but I think he's moving.
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm still here, but you can't see me.
Hey, RC, man, if you're in the bathroom, we don't want to see that.
That's right.
Exactly. Turn your sound off, dude.
That's right.
Hey, guys, before I do mine here, Craig, we do this whenever we have a guest, man. Here's the opportunity for you to give that shout out. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to Farming, Minnesota. And I guess if I had to pick something that the town is known for, it's probably its amateur baseball team.
Oh,
we've got it's pretty cool. We've got a very competitive amateur baseball league in Stearns County, which is the county we live in. And it's a state sanctioned league also. But all these little towns around here have these gorgeous baseball parks. And so our town of 64 has a baseball park you'd expect to see in a big city without a doubt.
really?
So
Wow, that's cool, man.
Yeah. And I played for 22 years. So
Oh, really?
yeah. Yep.
So were you a better hunter or a better baseball player?
Man, somebody hit him in the face with a shitty mop. Boom.
Yeah, no one's gonna see that on a podcast. But yeah, boy, I don't know. I'd have to. That's a tough one.
Oh, they'll see it, brother. They got YouTube.
Well, let me tell you, man, if you played for 22 years, man, you were cranking. Cause I mean,
that's a lot of years.
That's a lot of years to be in,
Yep.
you know, yeah.
I loved it. I loved it.
Me too, brother.
It was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So last but not least for me, this city is known for great hunting and beautiful waterways. The city got its name from the many ledges of coquina rock that lined the Indian River. Early industry here was based on the citrus trade. Local businesses now focus on technology and aerospace, especially those related to nearby Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral. I guess you know which state we're in right now, y'all. The city's motto is preserving the past, planning the future. And here was what, you know, it's so funny. We hear all this stuff about technology, aerospace, but this was the part that really got me, man. Buddy Ebsen of the Beverly Hillbillies had a dance studio right here
Come
in
on,
Rockledge,
man.
Florida, man. Rockledge, Florida in the house. Yep.
Buddy Ebsen. Man,
Buddy Ebsen.
From the very far West Coast to the East Coast, man.
Yep. And Buddy Ebsen, man, you guys, you know, everybody thinks of Buddy Ebsen in Beverly Hillbillies. And what was the name of the detective show that he had as well?
Yeah,
I can't remember that right offhand, man.
Wasn't Quincy, was it?
No,
That was Jack Klugman.
Yeah, Jack Klugman there. But, you know, what most people don't know is Buddy Ebsen, it's funny how things happen. Buddy Ebsen was supposed to be, he was hired and filmed the first 9 days as the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz.
Really?
Yeah, because this guy was a dancer, man. I mean, he used to had his own dance studio. Him and his sister did stuff on Broadway. You know, I mean, this guy had, and when you'd watch him do his clog in the Beverly Hillbillies, he'd make it look all nice and slow. This guy could crank, right? But most people don't know, after the first 9 days of filming of The Wizard of Oz, they used like a metallic makeup on him, an aluminum
oxide, like
and metallic makeup on him, and it ended up getting in his lungs and causing him have to go to the hospital because of a respiratory deal, man.
Wow.
And he was in the hospital, and then once he got better, it took him like a month after that to get all that stuff out of his lungs. So they ended up then putting somebody else in as the Tin Man, and the rest was history. So they actually had to reshoot all of his parts that he'd already shot.
The name of that show was Barnaby Jones.
Was it Barnaby Jones?
I think so. Jones. I think you're right. Yeah.
So after, in the next time with the next actor that came in, they ended up using a aluminum looking paste on his face. They didn't make the same mistake twice.
Didn't want to get two people see it.
But he is still in the movie. Never visually, but when they sing "We're Off to See the Wizard," that's his voice singing that with Judy Garland in there.
That's Buddy Ebsen?
Yep. Yeah,
wow.
Sure is now.
That's crazy.
Buddy Ebsen.
Joe,
man. Yeah.
Joe, you know, we've went to like every other week on our podcasts and everything. Mm-hmm. So my daughter was home for Thanksgiving, and we were very appreciative, got to see Lacey for a little while, and her boyfriend Garrett was over. Well, I didn't know it, but Garrett's a huge follower. Garrett Butler is his name. He's a huge follower of our show. And he goes, Mr. Ornelas, he goes, what's up, man? We ain't got no show this week. I was like, man, I went to go to the new podcast and it's the old one. I said, brother, you listen to our podcast? He goes, yeah, man. You know, he said, I walk about 5 miles a day. He's had some foot operations, so he's still trying to stay in shape. So he walks about 4 or 5 miles a day there in college. He said, so I listened to y'all on my walk. I was kind of taken back, and I was like, wow, that's cool. I said, well, brother, why ain't you listen to the other 145 episodes and everything? He goes, Oh, I didn't know there was. Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you
plenty.
something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something. I don't know if the boy listens to the podcast or not, but he's smart.
Yeah. It was pretty cool anyway. Love you, Garrett. It's all right, man. Don't let these guys make fun of you. Man, that's a big dude, Luis. You better shut up.
I know. I'm giving him props.
Yeah.
I'm giving him props.
Absolutely,
You
man.
know,
Yeah, absolutely.
I still got my bluff in, though. I guarantee you.
yeah. So, real quick, and Mr. Klein, I just want to let you know, man, it's an honor to meet you. You are really the only reason why I logged in. I had a really late day at work today and just got home, and I need to eat dinner, need to put the girls to bed, and have a super early day tomorrow. I'm wiped. So unfortunately, I won't be able to stay to listen to your story, but I will listen to it in the podcast. And please know, you and RC Knox and Chav are the only reason why I log into this.
All right.
I love you, brother.
Good to meet you. Yeah.
Forget about Joe and Gilbert, who give me crap for not, joining in. But I had to represent like I always do.
The leader of the Venezuelan mafia
I'm
showed up.
changing my vote on the
Yeah.
leader. I'm changing my vote, man. So,
The leader of the Venezuelan mafia showed up just like I knew he would.
That's right.
hey, bro,
Love you,
thanks,
brother.
thanks for coming
All
in.
the best, Brother Klein. Great to
Yes,
meet you.
nice to meet
Thank you
you.
for
You
spending
bet.
time with us, and love y'all. Peace
Yeah,
out.
my pleasure.
Good night,
brother.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Peace.
So, Craig, you're up, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now it's story time, man. And we want you to talk about your journey. You can actually start with where you were, 3 years ago. That part, we don't have to hear everything on that, but we'd like to build in and learn about your journey on that. And then, to the point where we talk about this season, we really want to hear about all your ups, your downs, some of the unexpected stuff.
Yeah.
And I even heard that there was a little bit stuff that might have went Western with the llamas. I'm not too sure about that, but
Yeah.
Them rascals, they're gnarly little critters, man.
yeah. So we want you to tell that. And if you don't mind, this is our educational show. So every now and then we might jump in, ask for clarification, have a conversation, just get you ready for that, as we go along, man. So set the scene. It is Montana. And what is the year that you're in Montana?
Well, it'd been in 19, I suppose. Yeah.
Yep.
3 years ago.
2019, just before COVID, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep. You bet. Yeah. So it was a buddy kind of put the bug in my ear about doing an elk hunt. And I had the year prior, I had gotten my first taste of Western hunting, and I had killed a mule deer on public land with my bow in South Dakota. And I was like, I like this little more mobile. I'm used to sitting in a tree. I mean, that's what I do at home. And I was like, this is up my alley. I mean, I like to get out and move. I'm kind of an aggressive guy, and it's like, let's do it. And
What part of South Dakota were y'all in?
kind of northwestern South Dakota. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. But and for me, I've only recently really been able to do some of this stuff because of my career. With being a dog trainer, you're really, really tied down.
Definitely.
The closest thing I can compare it to is dairy farming. But I had good help and financially able to do some things now. But yeah, so we decided to head to Montana. Kind of hunted the central part. We were not in a grizzly bear area, kind of by choice.
Woo, good.
Yeah. Well, we moved to a grizzly bear area, and that is an experience. But getting back, we started off, we were in the Crazy Mountains. I'll just say it. We were in the Crazy Mountains.
Oh,
and,
cool, man.
Beautiful. I mean, just gorgeous country. And we pulled in, and literally every spot where you could pull off the road had a rig in it. I mean, it was packed. I mean, packed. And we literally had to wait for somebody to pull out so we could pull my truck and trailer in. So we pulled in and kind of got unpacked, and we were planning on just kind of day hunting at first. And the next morning we took off to some spots I had cyber scouted essentially, and we walked just like the guy in our that we
Jim?
talked about earlier, bull hiked. Yeah. And didn't see anything. I mean, really didn't even see any fresh sign. It was, it's kind of disheartening, and we're, being my first time, my buddy had went the year before also. So he was on his second year. It's my first year, and very green. I mean, something that we were not sure of. And I feel stupid even saying it. We couldn't tell the difference between moose and elk scat, and that was because there was a fair amount of moose droppings in the area. And we were both like, "God, I think that's moose," but we weren't positive. And and we didn't have no service, so we couldn't Google it. And but
So
it turns out it
calling.
was.
Were you calling at this time? Did you?
Yeah, for sure. We were doing plenty of calling. I feel I've been pretty strong in that area even since my first year, just because I practiced a lot. And like I said, I do have a background in waterfall, and I actually competitive waterfall called for a while, and I can blow a diaphragm for turkey. So it was that came very easy for me, I think, compared to a lot of people, and it's lucky. But so that we were
using
calling
a diaphragm, Craig. Were you using a diaphragm, or were you using a hoochie mama?
No, I was using a diaphragm.
Look, you laugh, man. There've been thousands of bull elk killed with a hoochie.
Well, we'll get to that, but I still use one. I kind of use it to kind of add in.
Yeah,
you bet. But so the first 3 days were, I mean, honestly, just a complete bust, and the Crazy Mountains is no joke. I mean, those are big mountains, and we wore ourselves out. But I phoned a friend that had hunted the area, and he kind of was the one that had given us the starting point. And he was like, "If there's that many people there, you're probably going to need to get deep in." And he said, "I'm not talking 2 miles. I'm talking probably 4 to 6." And so we decided we were ready to hunt off our back. So we packed up the next morning and we started hoofing it. And we got about 3-4 miles back, I'd say, and we were locate bugling on the way in every once in a while. I did get a response. I mean, across a canyon, and I'll never forget that. That was the coolest thing ever, and it was in a spot where
your first response.
Yeah,
right?
The first response. Yeah, I'll never forget that. That was just. I literally, I think I got chills when I heard it. It was kind of an overcast, dreary day. It was pretty cold, and he bugled across the canyon, and he was just in a little patch of trees, and he literally had scree rock all the way around this little cluster of trees. And then we actually did see him step out, but there was absolute. If you had mountaineering equipment, you might have been able to get to him. So, but without that, you weren't getting to him. But we seen it out, so that was exciting, and that kind of put a little pep in our step, and we made it to kind of our spot where we were planning on going to camp for that night. It was pretty uneventful up to that point, other than that one bugle. And we did some glassing. Still weren't seeing a ton of fresh sign. This was all on trail to get to this spot. And there looked like there had been a horse camp back in there. But the next morning we packed up. We decided we're gonna make basically a big loop, and we were basically heading back, but we're gonna go off trail on the way back. And that's when we started running into a fair amount of fresh sign. And we had a few elk answer. We had a couple of them that I wouldn't say we got close, but we probably had an elk within 100 yards. So that's probably about as close as we got to an elk in the Crazy Mountains. We ended up making it back to our truck in 2 days. It took us 2 days to get back. But like I say, it was pretty uneventful. We were in some spots where I was like, I don't know if we should even think about shooting one here, because I don't know if we're going to get it out. But learned a lot, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I just love being in the mountains. But we got back to the truck. I phoned my buddy again, and he's like, I said, we only got a couple days. You got any ideas? And he's like, there's this little trailhead I ain't gonna name the town, but it's real near a bigger city in Montana. And he goes, it's a place that the yuppies like to go hike, but he goes, there's usually some elk fairly close to the trailhead there. And we got there, and we literally it was within a mile of the trailhead, we got an answer from an elk, and all of a sudden we thought he was running to us, but he appeared to be spooked, and a spike elk literally buzzed us, ran by, and we didn't get a shot. Turns out somebody, and I don't know if it was an elk, but there was also another hunter involved, and I'm not exactly sure what happened. But other than that, that was about our Montana trip. And it left me just, I had decided I liked it. I was like, I want to I'm going to do this. You know, I'm getting into it. I'm going to learn as much as I can. And yeah, and that kind of led me to start thinking about, I was thinking about the next year, literally when we were driving home. So yeah,
So
that's the first year.
So when you take a look at that, like your style of calling, your strategy on calling at that time, kind of what was that at that time?
Primarily just location bugles, because that's what we were trying to do, is locate elk.
Right.
And I don't feel that we were really ever, what I would say, into elk, knowing what I know now. I mean, yeah, we did run into an elk or two here and there, but I just don't feel we were really into them. I mean, it was,
Right.
we weren't in the right spot. You got to find them first. And
Yeah.
I don't think we were in the right spot.
So when you left out of
So-
there, what did you feel your number one need was going, I mean, you said you thought about it right away, getting on the road. What do you think that your number one need was going to be to do this again?
I think probably either do more research on the area that we were in or find a new area. I think that was probably number one. Finding ways to get away from people, get away from the pressure, whether that be finding overlooked spots or going deeper in, one of those two things, because there was a ton of pressure in that spot, which kind of shocked me, because from what I had been told, it typically isn't like that. So,
All right. So
yeah,
year one's down and
Yeah.
You're on the road and you're thinking about the next year. So what was the plan?
well, on the way home, my buddy told me that he was going to burn his mule deer point, so he didn't think he was going to be going the following year. So that kind of, I was like, oh shoot, that's not what I was hoping to hear, because I had my mind made up. I'm going no matter what. And got home, and I started kind of asking buddies around here, and nobody was really willing to take off the amount of time that I wanted to go, because I like to do around 10 to 14 days is what I wanted to do. And so I'm like, well, if I got to go deep and I'm by myself, because I was thinking I was going by myself, I was like, I need to figure out a way to get these elk out. Because I was thinking I was going to go back to the same spot. Looking back now, that was probably not smart thinking that. But at that point, I was like, I'm going to go back to the same spot. And I started digging into pack llamas or pack stock. I looked into mules, and I got 42 acres, so I have a spot to keep them. And I've trained a lot of animals in my life. I'm a dog trainer by trade. We had horses when I was a kid. And just everything, it just seemed like a good fit for me. I had a building that wasn't being used and had some pasture ground. And I started digging into that, and I ended up buying a couple llamas and started training them, because they were all untrained when I got them. And that summer, that's what I did a lot of, was working with my llamas, and continued working on my calling and stuff like that. But that was the
Now
big
that had
focus,
to be
was getting those
experience
guys
in
ready.
its own, man, right there. I mean,
Yeah, it was. I mean, first I had to get my wife on board, and that was no small task.
you're going to buy a what?
Luckily, I had 3 little girls that were really on my side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There you
So
go.
that helped. Yep, that helped a
Mhm.
lot. And,
So So just, this is a couple years ago. I wouldn't even know where to start. Do you buy young llamas? Do you buy older llamas? What does a llama cost? You know,
Yeah,
what
I
is
mean,
that process like?
it's the llama market has really just gone wild in the last few years. It's I don't know if you guys have heard of Bo Beatty, Wilderness Ridge Trail Llamas. He's kind of, and Randy Newberg is a guy that's really kind of brought this to light.
Right.
And I was pretty lucky. I kind of caught the front end of it, I think, when it really started taking off, because I was able to find a few fairly reasonably priced llamas. And they were, like I say, untrained though. But yeah, I mean, you could, two of mine came off of Craigslist, and I bought one that was a better bred llama, and but my other two were very, very reasonable. I paid $125 for one of them.
And that's reasonable.
Yeah. And he turned into a machine. I mean, he's awesome. It's a long story, but I've been kind of horse trading llamas and thinking I'm upgrading, but maybe didn't.
Well, we're actually, and for our listeners here, Craig is going to come back on because we're going to do a show just on llamas, and I'd like to find somebody else that's doing other pack stock to join us on that as well. But I've heard people using goats for pack. I've heard people using alpacas. I've heard people using llamas. Yeah, goats, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Goats?
Yeah.
Oh, if you can't pack them, you just eat them.
Yeah, they make good table fare.
Hey, RC, I've heard the same thing. You get stuck in a bad situation with a horse, right? I mean, so...
I don't know about that one. No. No.
But yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to get Craig back on. We're going to talk about that process and the training and those animals, what it brings, what the problems, the pros, the cons, and all of those things, man. So we're not going to go too deep in that right now, but you end up getting a string. When you started with 2, what did you end up with?
The first year I had 3. So, being year 2000 for our 2000 trip, we had 3 of them. And in the meantime of all this, do you want me to get into the 2020 season then?
Yeah. What happens in 2020?
So like I said, I thought I was going on my own, but midway through the summer, my buddy told me he did not draw his mule deer tag that he thought he was guaranteed to draw. So he was back in. So I was like, cool, but
Montana?
He did not draw
he didn't draw.
No, he was trying to draw Colorado mule deer. He had a bunch of points there, but we had put in for Montana, but we did not draw. So then midway, whenever the Montana results came out, I started researching Colorado and researching it hard, not really having any good firm answers, and then actually playing cards with some buddies. A couple guys had mentioned that they went with it and paid a trespass fee with this outfitter, and they said they seen a pile of elk, and I'm just out of curiosity, I was like, show me on a map where that was, and they pointed it out, and I was on X, and I'm like, well, it's all public land around there, and they're like, no it wasn't, and I'm like, looking at them like, yeah, it is. It's so they thought they were on private land, but they're primarily hunting BLM land when they're out there. And
there's that outfitter.
Wait a second. They paid a trespass fee to hunt on public land?
Primarily, yeah, but they had very good access. So what took me 4 miles to get into it, right. They could literally ride their 4-wheeler right there and be hunting.
So that was the part.
I literally, I would
have to go across private to get to it.
Now, knowing what I know,
so they had to go across private to get to the public.
Yeah, gotcha. There is ways into it, but it's not easy. Yeah. So, but yeah, so I just started researching that area, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy, even just from my, internet research, whatever. I knew it wasn't going to be easy to get into, but we could get to the areas that they were hunting. And they said they seen lots of elk, and these guys, I wouldn't say are hardcore hunters by any means. So, we decided that's where we were going to go. We're going to give it a try, see if we can get in there. We didn't know if we'd be able to get in there, to be honest. I mean, because we knew it was going to be steep, and it was there was no trails back to it that we could see. But we were like, well, let's see if we can get in there. And we packed up, and I think we left around the 16th of September, so 15th or 16th of September to head to Colorado. And we pulled an all-nighter to get there. And first night we just kind of took it a little bit easy, just did some glassing and stuff to acclimate a little bit, and didn't see any elk, so that was disappointing. But
What elevation were you at, bud?
I think it was 8,900, something like that.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, 9,000 we're top solid at, so it's not super high, but high enough. It's very, very, very rugged country. The next morning woke up early, started packing up the llamas. Where we were to access this, we kind of had to skirt some private land, and the first part of the trail is probably, I keep calling it a trail, it's not a trail. Where we skirted this, it was pretty treacherous, and I'll be honest, there was a pucker factor going on just getting around this one piece of private, especially with animals. That throws a whole nother
Element of danger.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they got a mind of their own.
Yeah, and in the same spot the next year that's where our little train wreck happened. But we made it through the first year, no problem. They did awesome. I was super happy with how they did, and we got around this spot, and then it got a little easier, but we're going through a lot of thick timber, which is also not easy with pack animals. But there's also some open areas. We good time in the open areas that picked our way through the thick areas, and we made it in there. I mean, it was almost an all-day affair to get back there. I mean, we hiked, I think we got back in there, it was probably, we started at first light, we got in there I think at 4:00, kind of where our destination camping spot was. So and we were torched when we got in there. It was not easy, but we started setting up camp. We picked out a spot, and as we're setting up, all of a sudden we see somebody walking towards us, and I'm like, oh geez. We thought maybe we'd have it to ourselves, but we're in Colorado over the counter, that's probably not the case. So guy comes up, and we start talking, and he had lots of questions about the llamas, and we actually hit it off. Turns out he's originally from Wisconsin, so he's a neighbor to us up here, and but he lived in Colorado, and turns out he works for a sporting good company that a lot of people had probably heard of, but I won't mention the name for it because he don't work there anymore. But I'm like, well, this guy's got to know what he's doing. He lives out here and he works for this company, and he's got to know what he's doing, I'm thinking. And we started talking. He starts saying, yeah, we watched you guys, we were glassing you guys when you're coming in. He goes, you guys are crazy. And I'm like, yeah, and I was like, I didn't really know what he meant by that. And I offered him, I say, hey, if you guys shoot an elk, I'll pack it out for you, because they seem like really good guys. And then they kind of opened up a little bit, and he goes, well, we watch you guys come in, and there's a old outfitter trail on that at a different elevation of where we came in. It's not marked. It's just it's an old outfitter trail, and it makes it, I'm not going to say it makes it easy, but it made it a lot easier with that outfitter trail to get in and out of there. And and then he started telling us, he goes, yeah, there's elk around here. You guys you'll see elk. And so that was pretty exciting. I mean, after talking to him, we're like, heck yeah, we're in a decent area at least, and we that evening we heard elk. We actually heard a lot of bugling. There was a drainage going through the private that has it's pretty crazy. There's at any given time, pretty much you could hear bugling going on down there. Even midday, there'd be bugles once in a while. But the elk seemed like that was kind of their main sanctuary area, I would say, but it was all private. And we hunted for a few days. We had a bunch of encounters. I shouldn't say a bunch, but we were consistently seeing elk. I think we seen elk pretty much every day. And I had an encounter that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Had gotten I would say a screaming match with a bull. And I located, and every time I'd call, and he seemed like I thought he was coming to me. And I was kind of going towards him. I had to dive up down the mountain because I was on top. And this was fairly early in the morning, and my thermals were still going down. So I had to get off to the side to him, and I was trying to get down to his level. And I got within probably 100 yards of him. I was like, I'm going to set up. Well, turns out, and I didn't know this, there was a bench. I was right by his bedroom. I mean, literally right in his kitchen, I would say. And what you would have thought would have been good, I bugled at him. I had so much going through my mind. I mean, I've listened to you guys, Paul Medell, and a bunch of other people. I had so much stuff going through my brain. I did not know. I'm thinking slow play. No. He's pissed off. I'm going to challenge him.
No, you were thinking
so
right.
much going through my head. And it got to the point where I think I was just throwing, crap up against the wall, seeing what stuck,
And look, dude, there's a lot of experienced guys that start throwing crap against the wall. Sometimes you just, there's a lot of guys. I mean, you just got to sometimes try to go off base. So anyway, go ahead. That's not bad.
Yeah. So this pretty quick. They came into the bedding area. It was actually a really, really nice bull for Colorado. I'm not a big field judger, but I would say he was well over 300 inches. Mm-hmm. He was a very nice bull, and he had, from what I could see, it's very thick where he was at. I'd say he had 5 to 10 cows with him.
There you go.
And the one time when I did challenge him, this is pretty quick when they first got into that bedding area. He actually almost charged me and came through. It was the way the bedding area was set up. It was a few tall pine trees and a super thick brush around it. It was a perfect spot for them, but not a good spot for me.
Like oak brush?
No, I don't know what it's called, but I found that they really like to eat the leaves off of it, and I don't know what kind of plant it was, and that's something I need to figure out. It had almost like a willowish, a big willow leaf, I would call it.
And they go out evenly all on it. And I'm not sure exactly what that is called either, but I saw a lot of that in Colorado when I was there, and it seemed like they didn't eat it when it was young. They waited and would only eat it on the mature plants, the big leaves, but they really like to eat it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so, this was one of the coolest things there. So all I see is a rack. Like I said, it was almost like he charged me. He came right at me, and he got just to the edge of that thick stuff, and he turned around and went back. I mean, I had my bow drawn back. I thought he was coming, and if he would have taken 3-4 more steps, I probably would have got a shot. But he turned around and went back, 15 yards, but he turned around and went back to his cows. And then he had one other time where I was calling. I was, like I said, I was trying everything, and he came and circled down below me, and I almost got a shot at him again down there, but then again he turned back and went to his cows.
How far away was his cows, Craig? About?
Not very far. I was close. I was 50 yards max, I would say.
Yeah.
That was the key.
It was super thick.
So basically he's in a situation where you've announced yourself as a bull challenging him, and he's got cows behind him. So he's bluff charging, coming out, trying to be aggressive, and then going right back to his cows. He's going to make sure that, if he doesn't see you, he's kind of worried about the fact that bull is going to go back and start stealing off and peeling off. Right. So did you ever,
that makes sense.
Did you ever start, like, instead of going to the challenge right away, did you ever try to be a lost calf or be a lost cow or do any cow mews first to test the love waters?
I'm trying to remember exactly. I know looking back on it, I thought I should have used more cow sounds. I had him. He was in a pissed off mood. I seriously
he's got to see it. He's got to see another bull now.
Yeah,
and that was the problem. Where you were, and
where they were was super thick, but then it kind of opened up.
Yeah.
And yes, exactly right. He was coming to that edge and he's looking and he couldn't see who I was. And he was like, and he went, just turned back.
So
and
to
go
me,
to
it
his
just sounds
cows.
like too something for you to think about. A huge part of most bow hunters' problem is their setup. Where they decide to set up is so friggin' critical, man.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to set up where he can have a stop and scan spot and you don't have a shot, you're out of luck. Because
you've got to get inside the stuff.
Yeah, you did have a bull in a fighting mood. You're bringing him into 15 yards, 20 yards with his gun behind him, but you're in a situation where you're not able to shoot because all you did was piss him off and brought him in, but you didn't set yourself up for the kill, right?
If you'd have been 15 yards inside of where you were, you'd have shot him dead as a hammer.
Absolutely, man.
But that's in the thick stuff.
I would have, because that would have been in the thick stuff. This stuff is so thick.
Yeah. Well, he's walking in there, so it ain't that thick.
Well, it was thick.
And I hear you.
You're talking about 750-pound animal as big as a Clydesdale horse, brother.
But you're actually,
there's
what
room in
Gilbert's
there.
saying is you're actually better off in that thick where he has to search to look for you.
Yeah.
But given, you've got to, and here's the problem is we don't get to pick our setups all the time. You got an elk, he's over here, he's 50, 60 yards away. And you're like, okay, man, where do I set up? And all this stuff's going through your head. Well, do I sound like a bull? Is he screaming? Do I challenge him? Do I sound like this? Do I that? You got all this stuff rolling in your head. But remember, and if I could tell anybody the nugget out of this, more importantly than any of that, in that tight bubble situation is your setup, right? Definitely. And sometimes it's an, oh crap, I've got to just set up because that booger's coming. But
there was some of that for sure.
For you too, man, you already had him jacked up, bugling at him, and he was bugling back, stepping on you. You're stepping on him. I'm going to tell you what, you could have Katie barred the door, damn them cows, and just bugled your way straight at him. Because he's looking for a bull, right? And you could have washed yourself right in the middle of that thicket and probably not scared anything, especially if you had the wind right.
Noise sounding like a bull, and he's going to come in and check it out.
You just bugle your way right to him, brother.
You had better be ready for a frontal, though.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
But at 10, 15 yards, man, I mean, you're a good enough archer. You probably make that happen. But like you said, you start doing just anything you can, to try and get the deal.
Yeah.
Sealed,
I mean, I had even at one point thought about trying to back out to try to pull them into the open a little bit. Cause I was really tight to the thick cover I was so
problem
close.
Is he's going to get to that open and look, he's going to stop and look through that open.
But all I needed him to do was step out of the brush, is what I was thinking.
But I
was so close. I was worried about even moving, that I was going to get pegged because I was so tight. I mean, they were right there. And
Joe hit on it was the first part.
Super cool encounter though.
Joe hit on it the first part. That bull was focused on you, but what he's focused on you about is keeping his cows. So if you call his cows to you, he's done, brother. You get between him and those cows, it's a done deal, right? So calling those cows are the key to getting to him, right? And like Joe said, that lost cow or that lost calf, man, those cows can't handle that. They're going to come see what's up, right? And same with the bull. I mean, Luis's bull that they killed, he was on a string because of that calf whining, right? So, I mean, it's just something for you to think about, man. What a cool encounter, though, man.
It was awesome to see that guy come crashing through that brush like he was gonna run me over. Yeah, I mean,
aren't they amazing athletes, brother? They can go through that stuff and never touch their horns on him yet.
That's another one I won't ever forget.
Yeah.
But
so you had that was one where I wanted to go from there.
My buddy missed a cow. Or actually, no, he missed 2 shots at cows that day. And he's a very good archer too, but this shooting in the mountains is different than flatland where we're at. And he
stationary
shot
target
right over the back. Yep. And it was a longer poke, but it was straight downhill, and he went right over her back twice. That was, I think, the same day. And we had, I'm trying to think here. Yeah.
So overall, in 2020, you're having encounters, and now
Yeah.
the blood is, I mean, you guys got the blood pumping in 2020, man.
Yeah.
It sounds like a very
Yeah.
successful trip. You're doing things, you're still finding your way in your elk journey as far as decisions, choices, and putting things, which is, dude, second year? Man, I'm telling you, that's pretty doggone good. You've actually kind of flattened that learning curve. Now, what did you, now we have a second trip coming out of 2020 now that's after 2019. What was the thought processing as soon as you guys are driving home on this one?
Well, I'm going to back you up just a little bit because
Okay.
I got a shot too.
Oh, no.
And, yeah. And it's one that I don't, I hit one and did not hit him good. And it wasn't the lethal hit. Just glanced one off his back basically. But that encounter, I definitely learned a lot on how fast things can happen. We were just hiking along and we were cow calling this time, and literally just all of a sudden, just like that, we cow called and boom, we heard brush breaking within 60, 70 yards of us. And we were on an old logging trail, which you could barely see, but they're cutting towards the logging trail. It sounded like there was two of them. And literally within 10 seconds of me making that cow call, this raghorn bull was standing there looking at me on the trail at 60 yards. And we had the sun was at our back because we're both on the trail and he's just sitting there looking. We literally had our bows on our backs. And that was another lesson that you should always have at least one guy have your bow in hand.
If you're calling, for sure.
Yeah. And so my buddy quick unclipped my bow and he pulled out his rangefinder. He ranged it. And then I pulled back and he kind of whirled. I thought the shot felt good, but he dropped and kind of whirled to the side. And
how far away was he?
That's my excuse anyway.
How far was
he was about 60 yards, which that's on the edge of my real comfortable range. But I mean, I can lay him in there at 60.
But here's the thing. I mean, these animals, I imagine, are looking at you guys while you're taking the bow off.
Yes.
Right.
And he was amped. And I think that's why he kind of whirled when I shot. Yeah.
And that's one of those experience things too that we talk about is understanding the difference between a relaxed animal, because that animal might have been able at 20 yards to be that antsy and you still get that shot and make that happen. But at 60 yards, you're going to end up with some movement.
Yeah.
Right?
He's got a lot of time. Yep. And that's something that definitely, and I should have known that from deer hunting. That's the same thing there. I mean, if an animal's amped up, you cut your distance in half.
Yeah, but second year elk hunting, you got elk there, you've been humping, you've been doing all, and I'm not making an excuse. I'm not saying it's okay, but we understand that sometimes Gilbert always says that, man, everything that you learn goes out the crack of your butt sometimes. And guys get so amped that they'll take a situation that should be a no shot and try, because
forcing it. Yeah.
Well, that's in my comfort zone is distance, but we're not thinking about everything else that makes it marginal. So I hear you on that. Okay.
Yeah. But and that was our last night. And we headed home after that. What I say, my feeling driving home was the elk got lucky. We should have brought home an elk. Without a doubt, we should have brought home an elk. And I was,
how many days was that?
I think 10.
Yeah,
what do you feel? What do you
10
feel like
days.
the biggest contributor was? You not finishing or not what we call finishing the deal on that bull you took a shot at. What do you think the number one cause of that was?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, and honestly, we didn't shoot well. I mean, which is crazy for two guys. This guy that I hunt with worked in the same archery pro shop I did, and we're both, I would consider, way better than average shots.
And which is a great thing, though, Craig, to mention, because what people got to understand is you being a rock star in your backyard, when you're flat, your feet are right, everything's level, is way different when you get on those hills and you get in those trees and those distances look different and you're shooting up or you're shooting down and you don't bend at your waist or you go out to, I mean, you're changing all that. So if you don't practice those scenarios, it's different, right?
Pressure.
Yes. Yeah. I would tell
too.
people to learn. I mean, some of these mountains are so steep, you literally almost have to go on your knee on your back leg just to keep your proper T form.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to bend at the waist. And a lot of guys will just bring that arm up and change form totally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you can't do that. I mean, you got to keep your same anchor. You got to learn that if you're shooting downhill, if you're shooting, below 45, I mean, you're shooting straight down. I mean, you can shoot your 20-yard pin out to almost 40 yards, man. It's no big deal. If you're shooting at an animal 41 yards and you use your 40-yard pin, you will sail it right over his back or slap him right in the back,
Yeah, that's what happened to my buddy, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So what do you think was the number one thing that kept you from sealing the deal with that bull that you let the arrow go on?
Oh, distance.
Yeah, I mean,
not knowing the distance.
I knew the distance. I think the animal was too amped up. He knew something was up. He could see us. He knew something was up, and he was, I think, on the verge of bolting even before I shot.
Gotcha.
Would be my guess. Yeah. So I would say that.
Yeah. A 60-yard animal that sees you, watching you, is getting nervous, and you pull that.
Yeah.
It's just yeah. That's not a good formula.
And I think something that we felt too, like when we were driving home, just talking and stuff, was like I think we were doing maybe too much bugling and not enough cow calling. I think that was
cool.
Something that we decided.
All right, so I'm going to take you, man. I'm going to take you from there. You've got the same buddy, and we're going into 2022. I'm sorry, 2021. Yep. I'm already a year ahead.
2021, yeah.
I'm already thinking ahead of ball game. We're going to 2021. All right, here's the story. Let's hear it.
All right, well, it started off horrible. I mean, we got in there a little later than planned. Same place. A different crew of llamas than the prior year. All but one, I had 4 llamas this year, and only one of them was the same as the previous year.
How come?
I thought I was upgrading.
Racehorse llamas. Did you?
Yeah.
You got you some quarter horse llamas, huh?
Gotcha. Yeah. I went bigger, better, faster, and turns out. And I will say it is a lot. I put a lot of the blame on myself. I did not work with them as much as I did the previous year with the previous group. So I put a lot of that blame on myself. My business was just absolutely, we had, with COVID for my business has helped, which is weird. Yeah. But so my business was just insane this past year, and I just did not have time to spend with them. But anyway, I talked about that first little stretch there where we had to skirt around that private that was pretty sketchy, and we had what do they say, it got western.
Grinders tuning in, thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Podcast. Our goal is to share our knowledge and help you flatten that learning curve so that you too can have some of the very same incredible experiences that have given all of us here at ElkBros a lifetime of memories. If you like what you hear or see, you can get all of this information plus so much more from our Base Camp Elk Hunting Training Camp, the first in a series of online courses from our Blue Collar Elk Academy. Our Base Camp Training Camp allows me to use my coaching style and share almost 40 years of elk hunting experiences successfully hunting elk on public lands, as well as over 20 years guiding hunters of all ages and experience levels. This course will be like nothing you have ever experienced in concept and structure, using success-based coaching techniques that will elevate your confidence and skill sets. Our camp will prepare you specifically from that final moment most in your control, those final minutes or seconds the elk is in front of you, backwards through each step and level, allowing you to see, visualize, understand, and relate every coaching point to what lies ahead, the next step, the next thought process, the next success. Because y'all, you've already been there. You know what it looks like. By tapping my 30 years of teaching and coaching experience, our camps are developed considering multiple learning modes with text, visuals, audio, as well as video. And Base Camp will benefit those new to elk hunting all the way to the 10 to 15 year vet. So if you are looking for that one thing to help you fill that tag this year, invest in the most important piece of equipment there is, you and your elk hunting knowledge. You can find the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Academy and the Base Camp Training Camp at ElkBros.com. That's ElkBros.com. Keep dreaming of the screaming, believing in achieving, and most of all, keep grinding.
Train wreck with your llama drama, huh?
Yeah, yep. We each had a pair of them. I had my one young one is rather spirited, we'll say. We were kind of in the bad spot where it was pretty sketchy, and he bolted. And when he bolted, he almost knocked me over, and it's steep enough where it could be bad. But even worse than me, I caught myself right away, but he actually made the llama behind him trip, and he did a barrel roll. And yeah, and I thought they were going down the mountain, but luckily this young spirited one was able to get his footing and keep the other one from going down the mountain.
Do you have them linked together there?
Yeah, and that's something some guys run breakaway systems, and I did not have them on a breakaway system. And looking back on that, I don't know if I'd rather, if we would have had a breakaway system and that would have broke, he might have kept rolling down the mountain.
Yeah.
So it was scary. I mean, it was really scary. And we,
is that one of those sit down, catch your breath? Let's just stop here for a minute.
That's kind of funny. That's exactly what I did. I said, just make sure nobody's going to roll down the mountain. Let's just kind of reevaluate where we're at and what we're going to do here to get things going. We got that other llama to where he was stable and not going to keep rolling, and we unhooked him. And this young llama was just completely not acting like himself. And I still don't know what caused it or why he did it. He's young, and that is something, after talking to more experienced people than myself, that's probably the biggest issue. He's just young. He's kind of feeling his oats, and but I got him across. We separated him, and I came back, kind of got him to a flatter spot, came back to get the other one. And of course it was a yard sale on the side of a mountain, and we had equipment scattered all over. I mean, you couldn't hardly think of a worse way to start your trip. I mean, this is literally in the first 300 yards.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and I mean, and it wasn't over. I mean, it was, that it freaked out the other llamas, so they weren't really acting like themselves either. And there was a couple other small rodeos, but we finally got everything around. And I mean, my buddy kept his cool, I kept my cool, and I think that's definitely a lesson. Like you said, it'd be pretty easy to lose your shit. I mean, in that situation, because it was not pretty. It wasn't pretty. Hopefully my wife doesn't listen to this, because she probably never let me go again. Yeah.
Hi, honey.
But
it wasn't that bad.
I got a great wife. She's awesome.
Yeah, but I know exactly. I took my daughter on a trip one time where Cav and I decided to go and go do some scouting back in an area, and my daughter came home. We almost died. So yeah, I know.
Good thing them llamas can't talk, brother.
Right?
Can't talk.
No. Yeah, that's man. Yeah. No, and I've taken the llamas on a trip with my kids to the Bighorn Mountains in Wyoming, and we had just a blast of a time. memories like you won't believe. But yeah, getting back, we continued down the trail and things are okay, but they weren't great. This young llama was just not acting normally. He was constantly trying to push me down the trail, and there was a point where, I mean, if this thing's gonna kill somebody, yeah. I mean, I mean, if it's between me and a llama, I'm the
llama's
one
in.
walking out. That llama ain't.
Exactly.
Yep.
Llama's gonna be there, baby.
And I'm throwing that, but sometimes you gotta, count your blessings, unstrap them, take them back and tie them, back in the pen at the truck
Right.
for a couple of days. Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, looking back at it, that would have been the thing to do, but I thought it was a fluke. I was like,
right.
Because this was the one that was with us the previous year. That's the really funny thing. I mean, he did great. But yeah, the other thing we ran into is this so this outfitter trail that I had talked to you about or mentioned from the previous year, that we were obviously on that. We had a pile of trees that had blown across the trail. And so luckily I did have a good handsaw but we spent hours cutting trees to get through, which that's one disadvantage with stock is, a llama can jump over about a knee high, maybe thigh high, tree, they can get over. But nothing waist high, they're not going to be able to jump over that. Not with packs on anyway.
Right.
But so we spent hours and hours cutting logs to get down the trail. So we didn't get to our site till it was just getting dark and the weather was turning shitty, and wind started blowing, started raining, and we had the tent half put up, and it had stakes pull out. I got a bigger it's a lightweight wall tent is basically what it is. And stakes pulled out as we're setting it up, and it was not fun, but we did get it staked down and we got in, and I got a little stove for in there. So we lit that up and it was good. All was good. We weathered the storm, but it got pretty wild that there's 40-mile-an-hour winds or so, and some rain. But woke up the next morning and started kind of heading to our spots that because we had been there the year before. We kind of had some ideas where to go. I went and we were going to mainly glass that day. And I actually almost right off the bat spotted some elk. So I'm like, all right, this sounds good. And I could hear the elk bugling on the private again. So it was all the same as last year, I was thinking. But my buddy went out and didn't see a thing. And
Mr. Klein, I'm going to stop you right there. We keep calling him your buddy, but that buddy's got a name. What's his name, brother?
His name's Cale Graham. Cale Graham.
All right, cool.
Yep, you bet.
So Mr. Cale's your guy you ride the river with.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
We definitely did on this one.
Cool, brother.
Yeah. But yeah, so I had glassed up. I'd seen a small bull and two cows, and I watched them until I kind of where I thought they were going to bed, and I kind of lost them, but I had an idea where they were going. They were going on a north side slope, and kept glassing, met back up with Cale back at camp, and he didn't see anything. And we were just kind of as I was walking back and him walking around a little bit, we're like, the sign is not here like it was last year. So that we were kind of worried, but I was like, well, I seen these three, so let's go see if we can set up on them. This was probably, I would say, about 10 o'clock or so. So it was fairly late, but we got in there. And I said, you go ahead, set up. I'm going to go back and call, set up about 60 yards behind. I'm just kind of doing a cold calling routine from where we thought they bedded, where we thought we'd be within earshot. And we set up a few times and nothing came in. I'm
gonna stop you there. So when you said you did a cold calling routine, for those people that are listening that might not know that, what did that look like? I mean, this is what we call a scenario that we would put on to sound like elk in the area, right?
Yeah, we mainly were doing just cow calf sounds, ground sounds, making rustling and stuff, and but mainly cow calf stuff. We really didn't do any bull sounds. We kind of had our mind made up we were going to do a lot more cow calling this year. And we had set up like I said, we had an idea where they're bedded, but we did not know exactly where they're bedded. So we set up and we just kind of kept doing setups. We'd call for about, I'd say 15, 20 minutes, and then we'd slide in closer. And I was on the third setup where I thought I had heard something, and I couldn't quite see my buddy, which I know that's not necessarily the best thing, but he was down a little ways. I could kind of see him, but not very good. And a couple times thought I heard twigs snap, and all of a sudden my buddy came walking back up, and he's like, "Did you see that?" And I'm like, "What? No, I didn't see nothing." I said, "I thought I heard something." And he goes, I had 2 spiked bulls within 3 to 5 yards of me. And and I was like, "No way." I was like, "Awesome," and in Colorado, you can't shoot a spike, but I mean, that's like, this is the first morning. I'm thinking this is good, and
There you go.
it was exciting. I mean, he was pumped, I was pumped, and yeah, so got off to a pretty good start. But then again, we were nervous because, like I said, the sign just was very, very minimal compared to the previous year. There was rubs the previous year all over the place, and fresh droppings all over, and we just weren't seeing it. So we were nervous. But we could tell the private land was loaded. Because there's bugling going on nonstop down on there.
And how far away is this private land from where you guys are?
Well, we can go right up to it. I mean, I mean, from where the elk were kind of hanging down towards the bottom of the drainage to the top where the public land started, it was probably, I don't know, not even a quarter mile, I suppose. Okay. I don't know. So they were fairly close. And this is, as we get into it, you'll find.
Okay, rock.
I just had it in my mind you couldn't call an elk off private land. I mean, I've heard people on other podcasts say you're wasting your time.
What?
And this is one of the things
you ain't
that
heard
I
it on
learned
our
from
podcast.
Cool.
And that's what actually gave me the courage to try it, to be honest. I was like, well, so the next morning we went up and set up kind of close to this public land, and we're like, well, let's just give it a shot, and see what happens.
Close to the private land. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there was a saddle where we knew the elk kind of came off the private onto the public a lot. And we're like, let's just kind of set up there at first light, and there could potentially be elk moving through the saddle, but also we're going to try doing some calling there. And literally I started doing some loud calls. I mean, like pretty much as loud as I could muster a call without blowing it out.
Right.
And because they were a long way off, the elk are, they're a quarter mile away. Mm-hmm. And it didn't take just too long. And it seemed like we had one responding. Like you could tell he was responding to the call calling. And I was like, well, they hear us. So that's a good thing. We can tell they can hear us. And then it started getting closer and closer, and like, he almost sounds like he's coming, and I'm like, I told my buddy, you get ready. And all of a sudden we seen him. He's still probably, I don't know, 500 yards away, 400 or 500 yards away. We just caught a glimpse of him, and he was on the move, and he's coming. So I bolted back. I wanted to get away from my buddy a little bit. And we're in really open, it's quite open, way more open than you'd want to be calling in. But I went behind there was a big pine, and I went and set up behind there. I was probably 30 yards from my buddy. And this guy was nice 6x6, literally came, and it happened so fast again. And my buddy did something, he should be listening to your podcast, because he didn't draw his bow.
The number one reason why.
Yeah. And pretty soon this bull was literally in his lap. Yeah. I think he was probably between 15, 20 yards away. And he's sitting there and hadn't drawn, and he did try to draw, and the bull picked him, and boom, he was gone. And it was a gorgeous bull. And this is nice.
So let me ask you this: when he went to go draw, and that bull went to go bolt, did anybody try cow calling or?
I did. I tried cow calling, and he wasn't having it. He wasn't, and And
Do
he
you
did
think he
stop.
scented him?
He
You think he
did stop.
scented him?
He did. I don't think so. He did stop, but he was at that point, he was probably pushing 70, 80 yards away.
Okay, so he did stop to turn and look.
He did
right?
stop.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he ran down
far.
the hill. I mean, he was, yeah, he got out of there quick.
So if he
'cause,
stopped,
yeah,
he didn't smell him.
okay, well, that's something I didn't know, that they wouldn't necessarily stop if they do smell you, they're gone.
No, they
But,
out. bud.
Yeah.
They out, yeah.
They
I
smell
would
you,
have
they
guessed
done.
that. Yeah.
No,
But,
I mean, the only thing that I've seen Joe do with bull staring us down is he bugles, screams a
Yeah.
gnarly bugle when I get ready to draw, and the bull freezes up 90%
Yeah, no,
of the time.
But
bull
let's qualify that,
Yeah.
because it depends on how close they are to you and their age group. Because I
True.
did that to a bull this year. I mean, he was only probably 10 feet away from me, and he was just a little bull chasing this cow. And
Right.
my problem was I didn't sound like a bugle far away. You know how you're
Yeah.
same thing. You get excited, and I just screamed that bugle out, and his eyes got about this big, and it just blew him up, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it can blow up a situation too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great, but I was disappointed. He was disappointed.
But you called
whatever.
a bull off the private
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
that was definitely a light bulb moment.
Did y'all watch him come across the private property?
Well, we knew exactly where the boundary was.
Uh-huh.
We couldn't see where the fence was, but he did have to jump a fence at some point
Uh-huh.
to
And
get to
actually,
us.
you're better off being that 500
Yeah.
Oh,
yards.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well,
Mhm.
and that's me and my buddy did it, kind of have a little disagreement on that. He wanted to get right up by the fence. I was like, I want to
Ooh.
give us at least 100-yard buffer.
Oh yeah, and or more, because
Or
understand
more,
something. Everybody listening is, when an elk comes from a direction and you shoot that animal, it is going to
Go
turn
back
and
same
run
way.
back the way that it
Same
came
way.
from. And unless you put a great shot on that animal, if you're that close now, and in New Mexico, I know the ranchers around here where we hunt a lot of times, and you can call them and say, I'd like to retrieve. Some places that becomes a difficulty. So,
Mhm.
and some
Oh,
places
yeah.
it's not. It just depends, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, but you open yourself up for that calamity,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
did the
And
right thing, brother, staying away.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like drama.
Absolutely.
No, none of us do. That's right.
No.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so I mean, we're thinking, wow, that was pretty amazing, and it was definitely a light bulb moment, and I'm just thinking of the year before. It's like I had so many opportunities where we did have elk way closer to the public property line, and why I didn't try calling them, I don't know. Like I said, I have literally heard on podcasts that trying to call elk off private land, you're wasting your time.
Son,
I've read it on forums, and
Wow.
it's
I've watched Joe bring them from a half a mile away on private land.
and we weren't done calling them off of private land.
There you go. Let's hear it. Rock and roll, man.
Awesome,
So-
brother.
We literally did not move. We just stayed there after that happened, and we're both bummed out. And whatever. There's still elk down below bugling. So I started cow calling again, and once you know it, it probably wasn't 15, 20 minutes later, here comes another one. And it happened almost the exact same way as the first one. We seen them go through that same, there must have been a trail where we could see where they came through a slot, and we're like, he's coming. And I bolted up away from my buddy because it worked good last time, went to the same spot, and this one hung up a little bit, and he took a little different trail, and just the way the terrain was, he came by, he got within 10, 15 yards of me, and I had left my bow by my buddy.
No.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Great lesson learned.
Yeah. And
Failure
it
point.
was there too, though. It was a scramble because it happened so fast. And that's that's something that people need to realize that haven't done it. Sometimes I'd say half the time it seems to happen like
It does.
ultra fast,
absolutely. Yep.
and you got to be ready for it. And in that situation, I was like, thinking this elk's going to take the same trail that last one did, and my buddy's going to smoke him. He's going to draw early, and he's going to kill him. And I don't. That was kind of my screw up. And my buddy too. He's like, God, if I would have stopped him in the right spot, I probably could have got a shot too. It would have been at about 40 yards. Yeah, so that was strike two, I guess. But
learning
is your
moment.
buddy,
too.
is your buddy Cale calling too? Is your buddy Cale a competent
a little bit,
caller?
you know, he's good, but
Oh, gotcha.
he's got an open read that he sounds real good on.
Good.
He's not quite as good with the diaphragm yet, but he's working on it. And,
good.
Yeah, the thing, and he does sound pretty good. His volume, and I don't know, maybe you got tips for that, Joe, is his volume is really, it seems like he's very quiet when he calls for some reason.
Not a bad thing.
No, I agree. But for the situation we were in here, a quiet call,
needs
there's
to fill
no
his
way they're gonna hurt
diaphragm
it.
more with air.
Yeah,
You know,
just more stomach, gut, and
Yeah.
opening your mouth a little bit. Some guys will
Yeah.
keep that real small, they'll keep their mouth real closed,
Yeah.
and they just are real light with it and you don't have to do it with tongue pressure. You just use that diaphragm, push it out with that gut, man, and you get those louder sounds. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a super exciting morning. I mean, we were pretty pumped up, but walking back to our camp, we're still, and we both were in agreement. Oh, and I forget this, I messed the part. So kind of when we were sitting in this spot, Cale had actually glassed up a whole pile of elk on the far side of the private. And he's like, hey, look over there once. And I started glassing them too. And I mean, there was a bunch. I mean, I'm 50, 60 head of elk.
Okay. Awesome.
On the far side of the private. And we started looking at our OnX, and we're like, well, that's public over there too. And they're kind of on the edge again, but they're definitely on public land. So we got this in the back of our head. And we're walking back to camp, and like I said, the sign just was not looking good. It's like they're on the private, but it doesn't look like they're venturing onto the public much. And I'm like, well, let's give it a day or two here, but if it's not looking great, we're gonna see if we can figure out a way to get over there.
And how far is your walk from camp to there? How far
from where we from to that saddle where we had the encounters?
Yeah.
Probably 3/4 mile.
Oh,
Okay.
that's awesome.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yep. And and then so that evening we're like, well, there was another spot where the first morning I'd heard elk bugling really close to the public land border. It was another drainage, and I said, let's just go set up there for the evening and kind of see what happens. We'll do some cold calling, and sure as heck, it was real slow. I mean, we were there early and we didn't see nothing, but towards evening, all of a sudden we had a bull start. I was kind of just doing that every 10 minutes. I was kind of letting out a series of just 3 loud cow calls, and we got a bugle, and you could tell he was working our way. And
one thing, Craig, that for our listeners to understand too, and help you out with, cold calling is actually just that. You haven't heard or seen anything.
Right.
You might have an idea of some scent or the area that you're in, but generally when you cold call, you're just trying to make something happen, and you think you're in an area where there is elk, but you haven't seen or you haven't heard anything. If you're hearing elk and then you're doing a calling scenario, you're actually you're painting a picture, creating trying to actually pull those animals to you. So it's a little different than a cold call scenario. Yeah.
So that was just, more just cow calf noises, but every once in a while I'd kind of really get after it and try to get pretty loud. Cause like I say, I felt we were calling to elk that were at a distance.
Right.
And towards evening, like I said, we had one answer, and he took a while coming in, but you could tell he was coming. And Cale was actually, I was going to be the shooter on this setup. But I was calling what I thought was, like I said, I am probably a little better caller. So I was going to call, but I was going to shut up once we had something coming in close. And then he was going to kind of pick it up and try to pull him past me. And it happened I think everybody, when you have a setup, you kind of envision where you want an elk to come. It's like, all right,
Oh,
he
yeah.
comes right here. That would be just perfect, and all of a sudden
luck.
I see antler tips coming through the brush, and he's heading for that spot where I had envisioned that this is where I want this thing to come. And I'm pulled back, and he steps into my lane at 12 yards, perfectly broadside.
Wow.
And he had splits on the top, but no brow tine. And so,
Oh, dude, what an illegal bull.
was not a legal bull. And I mean, it was the prettiest chip shot you could have ever asked for in your life. And
that's something right
That
there,
bull
though.
was bugling at you?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, dude,
Wow.
he had splits, but he was no brow tines. He was bugling.
He's just a
It wasn't
weak
a surprise.
genetic pool, and that's the other thing, man. A lot of times when you hear about this 10% thing about who's successful, you got to remember sometimes there's a lot of people that have got slam dunks on spikes or on a bull that's a 3x3 or something like that they've done everything right, but they're not going to tag out because it's just not a legal animal. So that crap happens, man. Okay. Man, sorry, dude. Yeah.
The funny thing with this bull is, so my buddy, I had given him, I have one of them ultimate predator decoys that you guys talk about. And this bull also went within like 3 yards of him. And he had that decoy. He was just holding that decoy in front of his face, and it came right up to him. And
there you go.
He was the bull. Yeah, the bull that, like you said, dumb as a bag of hammers. That was this bull, because it was actually a little calf that had come in that we didn't even see, that ended up busting us, and then they both took off. And there was actually, I should back up, there was another bull, and it sounded like a much bigger bull also coming. That was probably about 30, 40 yards away when this all blew up. And of course I tried screaming a bugle when they all took off, but then the gig was up.
You got to be so pumped. This is great.
Oh yeah, we're fired up for sure. But we, in the back of our mind though, we keep thinking about, we think like I said, the sign was not there, but we do have all these elk on the private, but we just seen all these other elk on the other side. So that night we were sitting in the tent, and I'm in my sleeping bag and just kind of looking like, well, how the hell would we get over there? And you can get there, but it's a long drive. And we drove, I think we hunted the next day, and we didn't have much for encounters. We decided we're going to make the move because we seen those elk over there again. It took 3, so we hiked back out, had some more llama issues, nothing nearly as drastic as the first on the way in, but it was rough sledding with that young one again.
More llama drama.
Yeah. But we got to the truck. It took us 3 hours to drive, probably just to get to a spot that was only a couple miles from where we were. I mean, it was just no roads. I mean, you had to go all the way around to get back into this area. And we're driving back in there. We're seeing some hunters get close to this area, and we get in there. It's I think we got in there and it was dark. Yeah, when we got there, it was dark. But next morning, I got up, and we kind of were taking her easy that morning. Well, for one thing, we had to pack and unpack everything, and we were I just kind of took off on a little walk just to kind of see what the country looked like. And I heard a bugle, literally not far from the trailhead. I heard a bugle, but it was on private again, because we're hunting a lot of kind of private, intermixed private public type stuff. And so that was good. So we finally got everything all ready, and we decided to head out. And I would say we where I heard that bugle, we set up, I think I did a locate bugle, and we got an answer right away. And this was close to the trailhead. I mean, I shouldn't even call it a trailhead. It's just a dead end road that goes on to private. But we got a call. We were kind of in a spot where, like, we better figure out what we're going to do here, because we weren't in a good spot. For one thing, we were right on the border of the public and the private. And I kept telling my buddy, we need to be at least 100 yards off. I just don't feel comfortable being this close to the private. And which in that like you guys said, that's probably not enough. We actually ran down this. It was kind of a small, what do you call them, Gilbert? A trenage?
Oh, that's right.
Trenasse. There we go. Yeah. So we ran down to the bottom of it, just because there was really no good spots to set up. And we started cow calling then at that point. And he was interested. You could tell he was interested. And this is late morning again, and doing that, I was just doing that loud call, and I don't know if we were just hitting the rut right or up, but the elk were eating that up for some reason. I mean, it was kind of a long whiny with a little buzz at the end, and it seemed like they're eating it up. And
Well,
this
dude,
guy
I
was
mean,
coming, and we could.
So really, this is, I mean, you talk about emotion. Instead of just having a, yeah, you've got this one that is, yeah. I mean, and
Exactly.
it's a plea, man. It's insistent, you know, and
Yes.
it's showing that emotion. Come here to me, you know. But you know, it's a totally different deal. And I tell you what, when Gilbert talks about me bringing a bull from over a half, 3/4 miles away, exact cow call, man. It's more of a regathering mew, a lost cow mew, just real pleading, like, "Hey, here I am. Hey, here I am." And I mean, it just really sends it sometimes. It really does.
That is exactly how I would describe it. Yeah, it's pleading, loud. I mean, it is loud. I mean, like I said, I'm
Oh, it's
blowing that thing
obnoxiously loud.
to the point of almost squealing, just so I don't squeal the call out. I mean, I'm trying
Right.
to get as loud as I can. And he was coming, like I say, and he kind of circled on us. He came on one hillside and came down the Trenasse and came up the other side of the Trenasse. He actually went past us, and we didn't get a shot because he was in the brush. And he came around on the top side. They definitely seem like they want to be up high and look down. I mean, I got the impression a couple of times. And he was actually closer to me. I was calling. Kale was set up to shoot again, and I was getting close to getting a shot, and then also whack, Kale shot. And I think Kale was probably 45 yards from the bull. I was probably about 30 yards from the bull. And neither of us were real positive on the hit. It looked decent, but we weren't real sure. But so the bull ran off and ran up into some real brushy area of the hillside. And Kale kind of came sneaking over by me, and we were talking. I was like, I didn't really see exactly where your shot was. I said, I know you hit it, but I don't know where exactly. And as we're kind of whispering back and forth, all of a sudden we heard a big crash, and we heard him go down. You want to see two guys act like idiots?
Oh man!
Woo!
Man. You want to see some boys act like idiots? Yeah, we've been there. Brother.
We've been there.
We're in year 3, man, and we have bull down, man. Third time's a charm.
One down. And it's within a mile of our truck, which is great. You know, even though we got llamas, but it's like we could get this one out without them, no problem.
Yeah, knock it out, John.
Yeah, so we tracked them, and we knew we were 99% sure that was the bull going down when we heard it, but we still tracked them out, and the blood trail was decent, but we could follow it, and we came up on them, and I was like, all of a sudden it was thick, and all of a sudden, you're 10 feet from it. I was like, oh shit, there it is. Yep. And celebrated.
How big was he? How big was he, Craig?
He was a 5x5.
Awesome.
A Raghorn 5x5. Yep.
Yeah, man.
Yep. And
legal bull, Colorado.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So we made pretty quick work of them. You know, we've both of us have killed probably close to 100 deer each. So we've had plenty of knife experience, but we did the gutless method, got them up in a tree, and
they're so big though. You think, man, well, cleaned 1,000 whitetails, and you look at that rascal and go, man, where do you start this rascal out? You know, because they're gigantic. Even the smaller ones are gigantic. You know,
they are, but you just got to jump in and do it. And, and you'll get her done.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was fun. And
So is
yeah,
the
we got
hunt
him up
over
in a
at this
tree.
point? You guys giving up? You're excited? You heading home? What's happening?
Oh no, we got him hung in a tree because it was actually the bull died in a great spot. It was nice and shaded, nice and cool. So we got him up in a tree, just hung him. We figured I'm trying to remember. I think we went back to the truck because, like I said, we were close. We weren't far from the truck. We went back to the truck, made some lunch, and headed out that evening. And so I'm pretty much designated shooter now. And we were calling. We actually went back to almost the exact same spot where Cale had shot his, and towards evening, same thing on the private. They started bugling and we started calling. We did the same thing where I would call, kind of get their attention, but then I'd shut up and let Cale take off from there. And backing up, Cale lost his open read call.
Oh,
And I shouldn't say either he lost it or I lost it. That's still a
mystery.
a subject to
Up for
debate.
debate.
But yeah, but
If you ask Kale, you lost it.
he would probably say
Craig,
that, yeah.
he lost it. Yeah.
Because I was rifling through our trailer when we stopped at the gas station, and whatever. It's a long story.
Gotcha.
But anyways, that was the call that he was really good on, and
Right.
it sounds great. He sounds great on it. So he is down to just using a diaphragm, which isn't optimal. And so I started calling, and we got elk coming, and they were hanging up. As soon as I would quit calling, they'd hang up. And Cale was continuing to call, but they weren't digging it for some reason, and they would start to leave. I literally called this raghorn bull back, I think four different times. He left and came back.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a bull you're
up,
going to kill, man, if they're doing that, man.
and we should have. I missed them twice.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh no.
At what yardage?
It was at about, I think he was right around 55, 60. He was dancing around. Every time I'd range him and pull back, he'd move. And I shot over him once, and I shot under him once.
Oh, wow.
And this is something that's open for debate. Is it Luis or Manano that shoots the real heavy arrows?
Luis.
Luis,
And me
yeah.
too now.
Because I was shooting that super heavy arrow, and I might not do it next year because I do feel that bull would have been dead if I was shooting my speedier setup that I have with my other bow. So it's a give and take.
So there's something to be said for exactly what you're saying, but also here's another thought I'm gonna throw out there is sometimes a clean miss is better than a bad hit.
Oh yeah.
So
I would agree. Yeah.
So I
agree.
mean, there's a lot of things to consider in that. But
99% of the time, it is not the arrow; it is the
Yeah.
Indian.
Yeah. So go ahead, man. You've had 2 shots, you've missed.
Yeah. And that's something that's tough is, like I said, every time I'd range the guy, he would take off again, and I'd have my bow back, and I'm like, oh boy, he moved. I probably should have just let down and attempted to re-range, but at that point too, you're worried about getting busted. So yeah, he got out of there. We did not get him. And that's kind of how that evening ended. So yeah, I kind of had my tail between my legs that night. Yeah, but it was.
But exciting as heck.
Exciting.
I mean,
super
yeah.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that night at camp too, we talked about the calling. Like I said, when I quit calling, the elk because there was other elk too. There was actually 2 bulls that night. And also some calls, and it seemed like when I would quit calling, they would just lose interest. And he was maybe set up too far back where they couldn't hear him very good. I don't know, but because I was even having a hard time hearing him.
Oh yeah,
it was just so quiet. But so we talked about that, and I had the old hoochie mama in the pack, and I was like, what, tomorrow you use your diaphragm, and I threw my hoochie mama, and he played around with that, and was like, hoochie mama sounds good. I mean, it sounds like an elk.
Yeah,
I mean, it does.
You add it in with something else, man. It gives a whole
exactly.
different,
Yeah. So that was our game plan. He was going to mix that in too to hopefully get a little more volume and stuff. And we take off that morning, and we went past where we shot Kale's bull and where I had the encounter the night before, and we kept going because we weren't hearing nothing. We were letting out a few locate bugles and weren't hearing nothing, kept going. We were probably two miles back in, and we got an answer. And we kind of slid out where we could see, and we glassed them up. The ones that answered us, they're a long way away, and they were on the far side of this drainage. And there's a bunch of them. And I'm thinking it was the same group of elk that we had glassed from the other side of the private, because it was about the same size herd. And so we're like, all right, the thermals were going down. We got to get all the way through this drainage and up the other side because they're going away from us at this point. So we gotta truck it. And we start bombing down this hillside, and we get about halfway down, and all of a sudden I see antlers in the brush.
Oh, wow.
And we're cruising. And the bad thing is our thermals are going right at them. And that we should have just probably just stopped and just seen what happened. But I thought I tried to tell Cale to go back 10, 15 yards to start calling. And when he stopped or started going back, a cow that I hadn't seen busted us, and the whole works went. And I tried cow calling, but I think they smelt us because the thermals were going at them. And that was a nice 6 point. So that was disappointing. But my biggest worry was they were going to take that other herd with them and be gone. But they didn't seem to affect that other herd because we slipped back out and glassed them again. And like, nope, they're still there, and they don't seem like they're spooked at all. So we're back to our original plan. And I'll
give you a tip on that too, Craig, as well. Is if you end up with a bull that does run towards another group like that, it's you got to be careful when you do it. But you can, and depending on distance, it's all about proximity. But sometimes you can sound like a bull that, give off some growls or some noises and a little chuckle or something like that. So it's not too threatening, but so that other elk think that it was another bull that pushed him off.
That chased him off. Yeah. And I don't think I did do that.
Mm-hmm.
There were a bunch of cows with them too. And they were the ones that were actually the most spooked, were the cows. And they luckily they did go a different direction from where that big herd was. And but I figured the big herd was going to see him going across the hillside, but they didn't. So we were trucking it because we could tell these elk were going to go up and over this next and out of this drainage. And so we're flying down this hillside, and the plan was Cale stayed on the far side, and I was going to try to get up and continue chasing them up the hill. And I finally got to where I could hear them yet. They were within earshot for sure, and probably 300-400 yards away. And I started ripping that loud cow call again. And all of a sudden I heard a bull bugle back, and he was definitely answering me. And so I kind of kept after it a little bit here and there, and you could tell he was starting to calm. You could tell he left the herd, and he was coming back. And I'm thinking it was a satellite bull, and he thought there was a cow left behind, and he thought he was gonna have a chance.
Lower hanging fruit, bro. Hanging fruit.
Yeah. And I called, and all of a sudden I could see him. And when I could see him, that's when I shut up and let Cale start calling, and he started, hitting that hoochie mama and calling, and he was coming quick. And I had a piece of sagebrush in front of me, and I kind of got down low, pulled back. He got within 30 yards, and I just kind of slowly started raising up behind this sagebrush. And I guessed him at about 20 yards. I didn't know, 20, 25, I thought. And so I held just a tinge high, and pulled the trigger and smacked him frontal, just dead center. And instantly, the blood was coming. It was instantaneous. And he took off running, and it looked like a hose coming out of him.
Oh man. How far was that shot?
Yeah. It turned out it was only about 17 yards.
It's a
thought-
good thing you hit him high. That's good.
Yeah, I hit him high, but I hit him dead center.
That's right
and-
where you want to
Yep.
hit him.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, and he did go a fair distance, but it was probably the easiest track job I've ever had in my life. Like I said, it was like somebody had a garden hose.
Yeah, Ray Charles
And-
could have
and-
followed that blood trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You-
you're still nervous. So I
Oh,
was,
yeah.
I was
Oh, yeah.
so nervous, and my I didn't see him go down. I didn't hear the crash, and my buddy's like, I was watching, I could see the blood with my binoculars, and I was 1,000 miles or 1,000 yards away. He goes, he's dead. And I'm like, I think he is too, but I'm still nervous, And
Yeah.
I said, let's just take our time and tracked, and I was glassing in front of us, and and I seen him laying there. And
that is so daggone
cool,
awesome.
brother.
So we're
Yeah.
talking 3rd year elk hunting, 2 for 2 in 6 days, Colorado OTC public land, man, right?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You got to be just like swelling up. I mean, we're like, whoa.
The biggest thing that for me is we've worked so hard, the first year and even leading up to this. And then when it happened, it was so easy. I mean, I should say it was easy. I don't want to say it was easy.
No, it sounds like it's too easy when them llamas were busting your ass
compared.
off that mountain.
Well, yeah, the work was just starting, right?
Yeah.
But it did. It happened. I mean, I looked at what we had put ourselves through the other years, and this, when it happened, it came so easy for us, and so it can happen that way.
So here's what I want to do, man, because we're at we're about at that 2-hour mark. So, but hey, that's cool, man. I
Look,
love
man,
the daggum story, man. This is
absolutely.
just awesome for everybody. But with what I wanted to ask you is, when people listen to this, 2 for 2 in 6 days on your 3rd day after all going, stuff. But if you listen to the progress, you had 1 year, much wasn't happening. 2nd year, we're starting to find this a little bit. 3rd year, we're starting to really find our groove. In fact, it seemed a little easy once it happened, right? So I know a lot of people are listening like, how in the heck does that happen? So if you could say what the biggest 3 game changers were for you, what would they be?
Oh, knowledge of the area to me was huge. Once we found an area we knew held elk.
Been there, done that,
Yeah, knowing that area is huge. I mean, if you can hunt the same area and you have elk, I'd keep going to that area. But you got to have elk. If you don't have decent numbers of elk, then I think you got to move. And be willing to move. I think that's a big one. The calling is huge. I mean, calling is
absolutely
huge. I mean, and I spent a lot of time practicing. I mean, I do. I'm dedicated. When I do something, I'm going to try to do it right. And I think I'm pretty decent. I'm sure nothing like you guys, but it got the job done.
There you go, right there. And that's the
man.
thing people got. You do not have to be a world champion. You don't have to be the best. If you understand what you're doing, put it in the right situation of where it works and matches the situation, you can be highly successful because you are creating the opportunities. You're not waiting for the opportunities to happen for you.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine this. You got those animals down there on private. Well, you could have sat up there for how many days listening to them screaming down there, but you created a situation because you brought them to you.
Yeah.
You weren't waiting for them to come to you. You brought them to you.
Yeah,
and
and that.
Go ahead.
Craig. Oh, well, I mean, I think honestly, what we were doing is getting to within earshot of a herd of elk and calling the satellite bulls off the.
Absolutely.
That's one.
Yeah.
And so
and
I
that's
mean,
what
I
you
think
should be doing.
that's what guys, and for us, the cow sounds. I mean, it was deadly. I mean, it was. We called in 8 bulls in 5-6 days. It was.
Yes, sir. That bull you busted going down, that bull, if you had been calling above at all, that bull was coming to you. You just didn't know it.
Probably.
He just probably was silent and he hadn't said anything. Well, he had some cows with him for sure. So he was probably coming the whole time,
He might have been. We had made bull noises. So we located bugle up on top. So I don't know if he was possibly he was coming to that.
If he had cows, he might have.
Yeah, but even a location bugle up there is not an aggressive act, man. It's a passive thing. It's just here I am. And then now, okay, listen to this. You had a location bugle, and now you got a cow running around going, "Hey, where are you? Hey, where are you?"
Yeah.
Somebody come in. Another bull's like not hearing another bull sound after that, hearing that cow doing that. Again, you become very, very favorable low-hanging fruit that
100%.
way. Satellite.
It's almost a slow play scenario you set up without even knowing you did it.
Yeah.
Right. And we didn't want to because the thermals were completely wrong. But
yeah. No, that's so cool, brother. We can't thank you enough for sharing your story here, bud.
Yeah, no, it was fun.
You and Kale sound like y'all yin and yang pretty good, man. Sound like y'all are two really good hunting partners.
We butt heads once in a while. We
all brothers do.
We're both stubborn Germans, so we clash it up once in a while, but we do all right.
All right.
There we go, guys.
There we go, man.
There they are. Two for two.
So cool, man.
That's a twofer right there.
Beautiful bulls, man.
Awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, nice bulls.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome
guys.
job.
Yeah, that's just awesome.
Double thumbs up.
We got to show we got to show the workers too, man.
Yeah. Oh
There you
yeah.
go.
Check them out, dude. Look at that. Them rascals. So there's the one right behind you there, the young one.
No, he's on the trailer.
Oh, he's on the trailer. Y'all retired his ass, huh?
Yeah, he
Drug his ass home.
Yeah, he was banished to the trailer after that.
We ate on him for 6 days.
Yeah,
Hey, and I'm going to ask you, Craig, as we're getting ready to close this puppy out, and if there was one thing or one message that you would like to leave to listeners out there, I mean, because you know what it's like to be on the other side of this listening in.
Yeah.
And if there was one message that you could give to them, and those guys that are thinking about doing this, what would it be?
If you're gonna do something, do it, and dive in and do it right. I mean that's not just for hunting. That's just life in general. I mean, I've kind of always been that way, and if you put your mind to it, you can do it. I mean, it's nothing that the average guy can't do. I mean, just put your mind to it and dig in and learn some things. I mean, it's a gift to have guys like you guys that are willing to spill your guts and give up all your information. I mean, man, I can't imagine trying to do this without the resources guys have today. It would take literally half a lifetime to figure some of this stuff out.
Yeah.
And we're lucky nowadays. I mean, I can't imagine being like Chav and you guys that had to start doing it without the info we got. It had to be tough in the beginning.
It was all boots on the ground, man.
Yeah.
Those guys covering lots of country and boots on the ground, and
trial by fire.
Yeah. Baptism by a fire hose.
Making it happen. All right, Craig, I want to thank you, man. I want to thank you a ton, bud, for.
No, it's been awesome.
Yeah,
it's fun to relive everything. That's for sure.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's a way cool.
Have you eaten any of that elk meat yet?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I brought it home and me and the kids processed it. My three daughters were out grinding sausage and chopping roasts and backstraps and
nothing better, buddy.
3-4 times a week.
Yeah,
4 times a week.
Too,
we're
brother.
eating it.
Way
better.
Awesome, man. What an awesome story. What an awesome show. I can't wait to hear what the future brings you as well, bud. So
y'all
I'm
planning
excited
to go back next year?
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, cool. Mr. Klein. That's awesome, brother.
Yeah. Well,
unless I draw a New Mexico tag.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no elk in New Mexico, but we can.
I've heard that.
None. You'll stay out.
All right,
stay across that northern border.
Yeah, keep in touch.
Yeah. Mr. Klein, we can't thank you enough, brother. And congratulations on an awesome 2021 elk hunt. You and Mr. Kale, we're so proud for you guys. And we appreciate you guys, tuning into the show and supporting us as well. It sounds like that, you don't miss an episode, and we appreciate that. Guys, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and review. You got to go to Apple Podcast or iTunes to review us, and you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. And just a reminder to our listeners, if you'd like your question answered on our show, just send your questions to info@ElkBros.com. That's info@ElkBros.com. And like we say down here in the Lone Star State, husbands kiss your wives, wives kiss your husbands, hug your babies, keep your broadhead sharp and your powder dry. And we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Peace, peace, everybody. And you know what's coming next? Music from who, Craig?
T-Dub.
Tony Wintrip, buddy.
Tony Wintrip. Yeah,
Tony
yeah.
Wintrip.
Right.
Good night,
Take us home,
everybody.
Tony.
I make my living working east of town, late nights in the summer till the sun goes down. I can't stop thinking about how my life's changed, but I'm still the same as I was young. I peeled them bark trees one by one, made a couple of dollars, filled my gas tank once. And I left my high school, barely made it by, but I found my way back. Oh, how time flies, living Northwest wild. Hunting, fishing is my kind of style. I float the Wainuchi when it gets hot. I'm proud of all the things that I've got. I'm digging in moss bags up in the sand, and after work a cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land, and drinking my buddy's homemade wine, living Northwest wild. This place has changed and it ain't for the good. There's a bunch of new faces in my old neighborhood, and the logging market goes up and down. There used to be a little export in this booming town. I fill my freezer from the river and the woods, kick it back with my old man. Yeah, my life is good, living Northwest wild. Hunting, fishing is my kind of style. I float the Wainuchi when it gets hot, and I'm proud of all the things that I've got. I'm digging the moss bags up in the sand, and after work a cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land, and drinking my buddy's homemade wine all the time, living Northwest wild. Living Northwest wild. Hunting, fishing is my kind of style. I'm float the Wainuchi when it gets hot. Yeah, I'm proud of all the things that I've got. I'm digging the moss bags up in the sand, and after work that cold beer in my hand, picking wild berries off God's land. I'm floating in the bay, now I'm watching my line all the time. Living Northwest wild.